SBPF 85 through 107 Baxter Road and SBPF Baxter Road area, all continued till the 19th. Is there anybody here to speak on these topics that can't come back later?
Since I said it downstairs, I'll say, if you think of some comment for any of these later, you can always submit them in writing to our office or get them to me. And just really quickly, since it's come up, I don't want to belabor it. With number 16, some of the reasons they had requested is I actually digitally received a copy of the as-built plan of that structure this afternoon.
Okay.
And they're anticipating filing their sand logs and things. They're just, they have them up to date through the 31st. They look to update those to current and then get that in front of us in time for, they understand that it needs to be to us the Friday before the meeting to allow for you guys to get a chance to review it, for it to get posted in the public to review as well. So
I think they need to come in and get their notice of intent squared away here, or else, because we took no action on the,
yes,
and otherwise, I mean,
they're also getting
turn this thing off.
They're also getting stamped design plans to match what they're going to be asking for.
Okay.
So they said they'll have all of those things prior to the next one. So just a quick update for that.
May I ask a question, please?
Yeah.
Could we have completely up-to-date figures on how much sand has been used? In other words,
Yes.
until the following Friday when they need to provide the information? With
Correct.
it? Could we have it per week, or so that we actually have a blueprint of how much sand they've used rather than just the total amount?
Sure.
The amount
I'm sure they
spent?
have it even probably. I'll try to get it broken down as to the smallest periods of time.
Well,
That's
just to give us a feel.
Yeah, I'll try to get it to at least weekly.
Talking to yourself.
And if we do get that nor'easter they're predicting, I would hope we would see a storm report, too.
Yes.
That's fine. No problem.
I have something more on this later, but I'll cover it in my administrator report.
Okay, great. Okay, with that, we'll move on to our first notice, the land bank at Fort Codfish Park
Check this
Road.
one. This is my personal. This is the one they gave me.
You can read your books.
Yeah. I'll just check it. I don't know for sure.
Do you guys know which plans you want to use? Will make a difference. There's so many good sheets.
Yeah, there's 5 plans, but they're mostly, first of all, Bob Emack, along with Arthur Reed and Julie Jordan for the applicant Nantucket Islands Land Bank. Yeah, there are 5 sets of plans, and they're all basically show the same thing. They flesh out just slightly different aspects. One's a planting plan, one shows the materials that will be removed. One plan shows some proposed contours that will show you how the water is going to be flowing, although we don't expect there to be much runoff on this site. It's all very sandy, but that has been provided for. You see a low area here, a low area here, and over here. Any surface runoff from any of the impervious rubber piles that are going to be on the site. This is our third hearing before you. The first hearing we explained the project. The neighbors expressed some concerns about the resource delineation. We continued, and we had a coastal geologist submit an opinion that the resources are delineated correctly, that the coastal dune is pretty much ends right here at the fence of Codfish Park. We continued again in deference to the neighbors, and here we are, pretty much. It's the same project that's been before you for 8 weeks now, I believe. So.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't at the prior meetings, but I've been brought up to date as to what has gone on with this. Again, I believe that things continue. Maybe they have an opportunity to reviews Dan Humphrey's report, which he concluded that it was, in fact, not a coastal dune. Once again, as you know, you have the paved Codfish Park Road, and then you have a large area of dune on the other side. Apparently, just a very small amount along the road here could be classified as being a dune. And in any event, this has been in use as a playground with a swing set. Obviously, what we're trying to do in response actually to a lot of Wisconsin residents who want enhanced play opportunity for their children down in this location. The Land Bank has put together this plan with Julie doing the landscape design layout of it to enable that to be able to go forward. We have a sheet to speak to various other aspects of it to the extent that you need more information. We have quite a bit of invasive species, invasive plants as we understand it, particularly in the westerly part of the property, which would be removed as part of this project, which I would see as being a benefit. The plan has evolved in response to various concerns raised by neighbors. We certainly don't have a sign-off from the neighbors who objected, but in response to various issues that they raised, we've made changes to the plan which are reflected in what you have before you. We think that this is a good project that should be able to go forward.
Could one of you outline just briefly the changes that you've made recently?
Well, the changes are all reflected in the plans
Yes.
as you've had them. I'm not saying that there have been changes since the last meeting as a result of anything, but just that this has been a process. We've been before the HDC, and there have been conferences between the Land Bank and the neighbors, and again, we may not have everybody happy, but we have, we think, done the best we can to make it be a project that meets these concerns, legitimate concerns anyway.
The changes that were made to the plan were taking my fully conceptual version of the plan and really matching it up with Bob's actual site and flushing out details on how I intended to drain water and things like that, and those are all in the plans I submitted last Friday. And the only changes that matching Bob's up with mine was an elimination of a planting bed in this area, and it just expanded the planting bed in this area, which actually works out for stormwater drainage and things of that nature. And I also did a calculation for stormwater from this whole slope and in a 10-year storm receiving it into this area so that that area wouldn't flood.
Okay.
Not that it's part of our purview, but is there any provision for like bike racks or anything like that?
There is.
Or did I miss that?
There is a bike rack already existing on the site. We made two. The concept of the plan is to make a fully accessible space in Sconset, which there is none. So we've been in front of the accessibility board, and so all the paths will be wheelchair accessible. All of the play structures have transition points for children with disabilities, for adults to be able to access every structure. And I think it'll be a real benefit for the community because it's a walking park, or you could wheelchair to it, but you'll be able to get into it with a wheelchair, and it'll be accessible to everybody.
Can I ask a quick question about the invasive plant removal? This just occurred to me. Since there are kids playing in the playground, we have to be probably even more stringent on the use of herbicides. Are you, and I'm sure you're following what we have in our regulations, but is it mainly hand removal, or are you doing clip and drip?
It's hand because it's olive.
Oh, okay.
There's no Japanese knotweed or anything clip and drip necessary.
That's great. So that was
There's
a concern.
privet that has been reseeding that will be now maintained by the land bank, but not pulled out of respect for the neighbor's request.
Okay.
But at least it won't be seeding.
Mm-hmm. Do you have to worry about, one of the questions we had from the neighbors was removing vegetation at the front, but is most of that staying?
There's a large, in my demo plan, which I have a copy back, it's the L number 2. It would have the least amount of things on it. This is it. Yeah, that's it. You can see that there's a large area of Ragosa Rose along the road. And in negotiations with the neighbors, it was brought up that they thought it was a safety issue for how tall it was. So I just reduced it to make a little bit more lawn area and reduce the size of the height, but I didn't want to lose the root mass. So I kept more than 1/3 of it. And then in the front along the road where it is it's supposed to be a coastal dune, but it's not. It's all Ragosa. I proposed kind of pulling that Ragosa out and putting some beach grass along the roadside, just to ease the transition and make the maintenance of the Ragosa easier.
Okay.
Where's the parking for this?
There is no parking. Again, the original plan had parking. The lot is very small, and a lot of neighbors had a lot of problems with that. And it's really a walk-to park for the village of Sconset after review with the land bank and with neighbors. And it just, A, doesn't fit, and B, I think that it would get used by the beach goers. It's not necessary, and I think it's better as a green space.
I just wondered about if you make that beach grass along the road, if people will just start pulling off there.
I think they
Unless you
already
can-
do. Maybe we keep the Ragosa if that's
There is a fence here, too. It's
Oh,
a real
okay.
fence that,
that exists
restrict-
already.
it does
Okay,
restrict
That,
parking.
the other parking lot, I did paste out, the other parking lot is about 100 feet away, too.
Oh,
The one
okay,
that's
it's
at the
not
end of
very
that
far.
road For the
Fine.
parking beach access.
Everybody parks higgledy-piggledy anyway.
I'm just wondering about if it's wheelchair accessible, if there should be like a drop-off for,
You could right
Out-
here. It
downloading.
also doubles as an accessible for the land bank to maintain. This,
Oh,
this
okay.
place comes out, and you can pull off here. This is all paver,
oh, okay, great.
so that
I know
you
it's
can
not
do
our
right
purview,
there.
it's just trying to think about,
Curiosity.
yeah. I think it's really great that you're making an accessible park. I think it's just something we really need. Park space, period, and accessibility is just a great idea. Well, any other questions from the commission? Anything from the public on the land bank project? I guess not, huh? Okay. What do you guys want to do?
Actually, did you ask, Jeff was going to draft an order, I don't know if you did that. I don't know if it-
No, because the plans had changed, so
Gotcha.
we had it open still, so.
So I think we're ready to close.
Yeah,
Ready to
I
close?
think Close, and then hopefully have an order for the next meeting.
Absolutely.
Jeff, do we have everything we need to close? Do I have a motion to close?
Move close?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries with Commissioner Carberg recused.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Okay, copy of 24 Long Pond Drive.
Sure, this is one, let's save trouble. We were waiting for a natural heritage sign off. This was for the installation of a pool outside the 50-foot setback, with no waivers required. We're just waiting for natural heritage
Okay,
sign
we're
off for
still
the
waiting
last
for
2 weeks.
heritage.
We have received that, and they've had no issue with it.
Oh, okay. And nobody's here to present on this, then?
No, Mr. Coffey was unable to make it. He got caught in the weather finally, so. I told him I would do it if we needed to. I have plans. It's pretty straightforward. The one in the packet is pretty clear. So. I'll just put a pen on it. Somebody sign it right on it. So if we're looking at the lot, it's the long pond with the vegetated wetland that comes in front, the 50-foot setback, and I just wanted to put the pool and the fence that kind of comes in as well outside of 50.
Okay.
Comes up and connects. They don't have groundwater issues there, so.
I think the one concern would be, as we have in our standard orders about pool drainage and
Yep.
things like that.
In the draft order, I actually put the normal discharge outside
Okay.
of 100 feet, so.
It's good to see that again, because this was kind of hard to see on here.
It's a small one.
Okay, so anything else from the commission?
Should we move to close then?
Well, let's see if if there's anybody. Is there any other public comment on coffee? Okay. So Jeff, do we have everything we need to close this?
Yes.
Do we have a motion to close?
We'll move to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, Swains Point Nominee Trust, 260 Pulpus Road.
For the applicant, I think I'll borrow and after review.
I'm the applicant, as trustee.
Oh, I'm here with the applicant. We're before you tonight with a notice of intent application for this rather large property at 260, 240? Pulpus Road? 260, thank you, Pulpus Road, commonly known as the Phelan property. And the purpose of this notice of intent is really threefold. One is to establish the resource area boundaries according to the current regulations. So we did, I guess maybe the easiest, we've got 3 sheets here where we zoomed in on each of the areas. And I think it might be easiest to also provide you with sort of just the GIS of the property overall, and then I might be able to key it to this for you for exactly what's going on. So first and foremost, what we did across the entire property was to delineate the vegetated wetland boundary according to the current criteria, the 18 inches to redoxamorphic features essentially, and that was within some areas that were mowed as well. Some of these areas, a lot of the property had been maintained prior to 1971 and the enactment of the Wetland Protection Act. The second portion of the application is there was essentially a couple of open orders of conditions on this property, and the purpose of this notice of intent is essentially to be able to bring everything into compliance on the site with the past orders. Which have expired, so thank you, so that we can't do work underneath them, so that then we'll be able to close everything up. And those orders had to do with the reconstruction of a bridge on the property, which is located right here. And it's a timber bridge that was put over an old concrete structure. The old structure, as those of you that were on the site visit saw, is still there with the new bridge above it. Our proposal is and there are differences between the bridge that was built and the bridge that was permitted and what was left there. So we've come to look at this as what can we do in terms of a overall net benefit, least amount of disturbance, to use a bridge that's there and works. And what we've come up with is essentially to get rid of or to remove the materials related to the old bridge. And so there's concrete structures here which impact the tidal flow. We've got a tidal creek through here, and with a full tide rain, with a tidal fluctuation as well, sometimes the portions of the old concrete are completely submerged, and sometimes they're above water and when they're submerged, cause restrictions in this area of the tidal flow. The long and the short is that we propose to remove all of those old materials, do any stabilization of the side slopes that are there, and essentially improve the situation so that the bridge is something that we feel that we could come back and obtain certificates of compliance. When you look at it, we've gotten rid of everything, we've improved the situation, everything's stable. So that's one of sort of the main aspects really of this filing is to address the bridge over the tidal creek. And then finally, there is edges of mowing that were delineated as part of the past orders. And that's where on this plan you see what I have, what I'm calling the railroad track line. And then you see that we have a whole bunch of these black dots, marks along the way. And what they've done for maintenance purposes, they were required to delineate the edge of mowing, and so they've used essentially gray pieces of conduit, like electrical conduit, that they've left half-inch, just very small pieces of pipe. So there's a guy running the machine mowing every year, and then he follows the little pipes. Essentially, you could see that there is deviation along the way between what was marked and mowed. They made an effort, it's a very large property, and what was approved. So what we're proposing in this application is that where our existing mowing is upland of what was supposed to be mowed, that's what would be maintained. And then in areas where our mowing is below what was supposed to be, we'll move the mowing and the markers up to the line. There are 2 areas that under the new delineation, and what we've done is to keep the old delineation on there so that you could see. What's happened, of course, is with the new regulations, the wetlands have all come inland, if you will, under the new criteria. So this was the old delineation, this triple dot dash line all along here, and you can see that the new delineation is up. There are a couple areas that I would point out to you in this lawn and in the main house lawn, which are all lawn, existing edge of mowing, that have now new, essentially, resource areas within them. Those, again, are areas that have been maintained, prior to the effective date of the regulations, and our proposal would be to go to essentially the mowing line that's there. And those, really, that's the 3 pieces, the delineation. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, there's the third piece of the work is that there is utility lines. There was overhead utility poles and lines that used to serve this house before, when it was the pink house, before they turned it into the new house. And those were supposed to be removed. Well, what happened was they cut the poles off and left them in the wetland, essentially, in the wire, the old wire. So we're proposing to get that all out of there so that we can close that order of conditions related to that. So just in summary, we've done a new delineation. We're proposing to adjust the limits of mowing. We're proposing to essentially fix up the bridge area and then to remove any utility remnants by hand again. No, I'm not going to bring any machinery in from the wetland resource areas. And that's really the overall summary of the project. There's an awfully lot of property area and boundary, but there's not a whole lot of work associated with the filing.
The owner of this died 2 years ago, and since I got involved in the issues with this after his death, and Art has as well, we've been basically working on trying to clean up the situation across the board, including the old orders and conditions, and that's what precipitated going forward with this at this time.
It was Psyche Lucas Evans who was the owner of the
That's right.
Of the pink house.
And with their dysfunctional family, I always refer to as Psyche and the Psychos.
I actually used
We
to
won't
go
go
to dinner there.
Did you fit right in there?
And then the new owner had the boat Scoot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's going to happen after you take the bridge out?
Well, the new bridge will stay. It's the
Right.
remnants
Okay.
of the old bridge, and what we've proposed is that we can get at it from this side. I propose that we would cut the concrete, lift it out, with the neck again from outside of the resource area, hand labor. It's mostly just getting rid of. I think there might have been some photos in the application that showed that essentially it's the parts that we're getting rid of no longer function. They've been superseded, if you will, by the new pile-supported bridge.
Was that like a kind of a low water crossing bridge where they just drive over that thing? Or?
No, I think it was more like Yankee culvert, if you will. Where there was probably some kind of a culvert, then they poured a whole bunch of concrete and formed it up so that it didn't keep washing out because the tide my sense is that because the tide fluctuation in there is so great, especially on the moon tides. With some surge, that they probably used to get washout through there along the edges, and it kept getting wider, which is why they poured so much concrete.
I have a follow-up question to Ian's. As far as the bank stabilization, when you pull out that concrete, and I agree they should pull out that concrete because it's really restricting flow. What do you think you might have to do when you pull that out on either side? Do you think you're going to have to put a little timbers or?
No, my idea would be that you would probably just do some netting and grade back the slope as much as possible, by hand, small disturbance. If there is going to be, I'll tell you that I was sort of, my initial, when I first looked at it, I proposed that we actually just cut the concrete and lift it out and leave that little bit. And then I looked at it again and really on the site visit too, and I thought, well, I think we can get a lot of this out of here. So my direction, would be to get as much out as possible with the least amount of disturbance, probably meet with the contractor there and then recognize that, ultimately we've got to get it stabilized and get some growth going on, on that, on those two little or the 4 banks, if you will, on each side where we will have a little bit of disturbance. But ultimately, I think that the best situation for resource areas, aesthetics, everything is going to be to get everything we can out of there and then try to just get it all vegetated. Which I would imagine probably Spartina, maybe along the edges on the lower
Yeah,
portions.
what's the salinity there, do you know?
No, I'm sure it's quite high.
Yeah.
Probably pretty darn
Right.
I mean, it's
That
very
vegetation
tidal.
marsh is full of sparkline.
Right.
Yeah, it makes sense. Probably a combination of pavements and ultimate.
And we can provide photos as well, how I thought
Yeah.
that we would, before we could come back to get a certificate of compliance, we'd have to have stable vegetated slopes.
That sounds good.
It's one of those good projects that it's in their best interest to make sure they're stable.
Right.
Take advantage of their bridge.
That is one heck of a bridge across there, though.
It's the best bridge on the island.
Yeah, you can drive
Yeah.
across.
While we're at tags I've been putting on this property, that's the bridge over troubled waters.
So is the wetlands that are in lawn,
Yeah.
are there any wetland plants in there?
No, it's
It's
all.
all just soil? Do they ever get wet? I mean, is there ever standing water in there?
I don't know. I can
Probably this week there
The
is.
last time
Well, yeah.
I was telling her, I went out a couple of weeks ago to double check one of the plots that we had verified on the main house lawn, and that was at a time where just standing still, water would pool up around your feet. As soon as you moved, it would suck back in. But that was on a moon tide too, so it was wet already. But I bet given the right conditions, it probably holds apart.
I just wondered if they would make kind of a little wet meadow in there. I mean, there's no shortage of lawn on this property,
Right.
honestly. I mean, there is so much lawn. They could hold the World Croquet Tournament out there. And
They could, yeah. Well, that's not, nice, even if you just seed it with some Cape Cod mix or something.
that right now it's just natural turf grasses. It's not like a fine sod mix or anything. It's all geese and deer excrement. All over the. It's just a native type grasses and not really sort of more ornamentals or anything like that in that area.
Naturally fertilized.
Right, heavily.
Okay. Anything else from the commission? Anything from the public on Swains Point? Okay, I guess not. So Jeff, do we have what we need to close this hearing?
Yes, sir.
Have a motion to close.
Move to close?
You guys are ready to close, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries with Commissioner Carberg recused.
Thank you.
Okay, La Bombard, 62 West Chester Street.
We'll continue that.
Yeah, unless we hear an objection, we'll continue this till the next meeting. Okay, so it is. huh?
She applied to drop stuff off until we needed stuff.
Okay, 5 Crow's Nest Way, nominee trust, 5 Crow's Nest Way.
So this was also a last time thing about, we were waiting for National Heritage and their sign off. This was for, G kind of connection, maybe put some deck and then we move the patio. Okay, we did, what was doing out here? Quite some time ago.
Thank you. Arthur Gascaro, Blackman Associates for the applicant. For the second hearing on this application, which was for modifications to the structure and deck within the coastal dune resource area. We're located out north of the Wawanet Inn. And as Jeff had mentioned, we were waiting for, I believe, both file number and natural heritage sign-off, which have both been issued and received. And I'm not aware of outstanding questions or concerns from the last hearing, but I'm here to address any that you may have, or I could go back over. I don't want to do things twice.
Any questions from the commission on this?
This is the close-up,
that.
sort of, yeah.
And I think the only concern we had was that, just that edge of that one deck was actually over sand dune.
Right.
Everything else was in lawn or other deck or elevated,
And that is, yeah, going within 25 feet, so there was one portion, everything else was with that 1 foot by, or 6 inch by,
It's probably about
3
2
foot.
feet, just
2
to be
feet,
clear. I think
yeah.
that this deck right here goes approximately 2 feet past the existing patio. And it's that, there wasn't really a lot of discussion of that at the last hearing. If that was going to hang up or be a reason for denial of the project, I would hope to sort of receive that feedback, if you will, before I close it, because I didn't go back and talk to the client about reducing that or not, and because there wasn't comment. So I guess that's just, I just would like, if I could know, I wouldn't close the hearing, and I don't know.
You guys had given me in the last meeting instructions to draft it positive.
okay, yeah. I think, when you look at how much the walk, the boardwalks on the ground are going to get elevated and things, there are some improvements being conducted with the project as well.
if we can be careful in how we word it, because we usually try not to.
25 foot's pretty much sacrosanct.
Yeah.
Yes, it is, yes.
So, being clear to say no adverse impact, no alternative. Is there areas where you feel like there's a give back that's?
Well, I think there's a big boardwalk right through here, wasn't there, somewhere in there?
The boardwalk was up along here
Oh,
on the
okay.
side, and then this piece of deck, which shows a little clearly here, would be removed, which so that's a reduction in size going that way, but we're picking it up on this side. I did include the numbers that there is, an increase within the resource area. And again, when you mentioned 25, just for, clarity, this is in actually the dune resource area. And I guess I would say, the more that I look at this and I'm listening to the commission, that if I was just going to look quickly at the architecturals to see if I had a dimension there, and if it was going to, I think, give the commission a greater level of comfort with the overall project, if that deck didn't expand beyond the patio, I think that would be an acceptable condition.
That'd be
That would be probably...
ideal, obviously.
Yeah, I think that would be the better
So maybe
solution.
subject to a condition, subject to a revised plan that shows the deck not extending beyond the patio, and then we could close this.
That sounds
Well,
great.
as part of the discussion, I'll do my notes again today. One of the things we had talked about is the fact that even with the decks going up, that it's an improvement for this resource area than having a patio that's at grade.
Right.
Because you're allowing for the free passage again, there's not being restricted by the patio. Something we talked about for, I won't say for quite a while, but for a few minutes. So, but again, if that's something.
Yeah, that's what I think that I don't want to get hung up on the whole project over that, and I can see the point there. So I would just provide a revised plan that didn't extend the patio to the south beyond the existing the deck beyond the existing patio to the south.
That'd be great.
That's good. Anything else from the commission? Anything from the public on 5 Crow's Nest Way? Okay, seeing not. Jeff, do we have what we need to close the hearing?
Yes.
Move to close.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, Hoffman, 7 and 9 Grant Ave.
I asked for a bigger plan. It's the largest sheet of paper I've ever seen.
Well, I think, we could have, David Haynes for the applicant. This was continued last time for a file number, and also the commission had a couple of questions. They were concerned about the geofiber they were going to use to stabilize the soil. That has been removed from the application and been replaced by putting down jute netting. just biodegradable jute netting, so it will rot and become mulch, and it will not.
And inject polypro into the soil, good for you.
Yeah.
The other thing that the commission had a question about was the use of, what was it?
The gray birch that's there?
Oh, yeah, the gray birch.
Is that,
And I did look it up in Peter Dunwoody's book. It is rare, but not it was more common around by Bicknell. Found it in
Okay.
1910. Fairly common in swampy areas, but did not. Peter Dunwoody said it was very rare when he did his book in '96. So we're considering it to be indigenous and non-invasive, and we'd like to keep it. If the commission has a problem with it, we can replace it with something else. But other than that, if everybody remembers the project, this was a project to remove. There's a couple of retaining walls up here in this area, and then the slope is very steep below it. A lot of erosion. There's a pipe coming out here that's discharging, and it's covered with invasive species. We want to pull out the retaining wall, regrade the area, do some terracing to improve the stabilization, replant all indigenous, and then go in even in the isolated wetland down here to remove the invasives and replant as described on the planting plan.
Okay.
And we did get a final number, and it's not natural heritage.
Any questions?
No? Thank you very much on that, Plaster, really.
I did do some research on it. I called the people, and they said, well, it doesn't hurt turtles when they eat it. That's what they're concerned about in Arkansas.
Yeah.
Anything from the public on Hoffman on Grant Ave? Quiet public tonight. Okay, Jeff, we have everything we need to close. Do you have a motion to close the hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Kaplan, 37 Holbert Ave.
No.
Yes,
Lorette.
that's been continued.
Oh, that is continued.
Thank you. For the record, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors, representing the applicant, Ronald and Ellen Kaplan, recent purchasers of 37 Halbert Avenue. We're looking at doing some expansion on the existing structure. The structure is located on a level developed lot. Home has been there for some time. Resource areas are a coastal bank, which is essentially the edge of a timber bulkhead, and we are within land subject to coastal storm flowage. So you have in front of you here the 25-foot setback, 50-foot setback, and the 100-foot setback to the bulkhead, the timber bulkhead itself. What the proponent plans to do is this back section of the existing structure is living space on the second floor with a porch on the first floor. The plan is to completely enclose that first floor porch area in the back.
Is it already roofed?
Yeah, it's a roof, and it's actually a second floor.
Okay, so it's
so
a
there's
deck.
living space above the first floor deck.
Paul, is this the
Structure.
Sawyer House?
It was the Sawyer House,
Okay.
correct? Yes,
I
it was
know
the
where you
Sawyer
are.
House for
50
and-
years or more.
Yeah, adding a small deck along the backside. That enclosing of the interior space would occur within the 50, outside the 25, but within the 50. Then outside of the 50 would be a small addition to a deck here, 2 additions to the front massing of the house with a new entry along Hulbert and another entry off to the side of the driveway. The site itself does have a preservation restriction that runs with it, and actually this dashed area in the front where we're proposing these 2 small additions is actually the only area where the house can be expanded due to the preservation restriction. So that's occurring within that area right there. The project itself would need waivers, as we are proposing this work, albeit within the built section of the house. It is within the 50-foot setback. So I have asked for waivers pursuant to there being no reasonable and alternative conditions that would allow the project to proceed with the regulations, and that's specifically for the enclosing of the existing porch within the 50-foot setback. Other than that, all the proposed additions are outside the 50. Again, all work, though, is within the land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Well, the enclosure is along the water side or along the Hulbert Ave side?
The water side.
The water side, okay.
Yeah. I
I'm with
think
you.
I actually have a picture here of the back side of this. Let me just see if I
Might be
have
able to
something.
toss the ice
So
from their
surprised,
tanks.
such a beautiful old porch.
Is that all lawn
Yes,
opposite
it's
the
all
bulkhead?
on the back.
Oh, it's so beautiful. It's
Yeah.
a shame. They gotta spoil it.
Yeah.
And like they said, they had a porch down there anyway, so it's just enclosing land that we already consider a structure.
Yeah.
It's not so much
No,
that they
that's
have
right.
to come
It's
up or anything, there's no
enclosing the
FEMA issues.
backside.
You
It's a
passed by
pretty
a couple
artificial
photos. Could I just look
situation
at
out
those?
there with
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
bulkhead and
Yeah.
lawn and stuff. It's not like it's,
Well, actually, I might have some better photos that are part of the. Yeah.
Because that's the public way. This is all lawn, but it's a beautiful fashion porch. That's what people want to do.
This is actually the front, that's the Hulbert Ave side
Yep.
of the house. So that whole front lattice and decking there would get replaced with the additions in the stairway. And then the back side, yeah, there's the back side. So there's that back.
And that'll be enclosed?
Yeah, they'll enclose the lower portion of that.
That's crazy.
They can still
Yeah,
sit up on
there's
the
no
top.
problem.
Yeah,
It's just
Yeah, yeah,
amazing
they
because that's so
Be
beautifully
easy.
set out.
Window under eyes,
yeah.
And look at the water.
we're worried about one pollution of the
And
harbor.
the septic.
Yeah, well, actually, what's getting, so really, no, this is not being enclosed. See, this porch goes into that glass area right there.
Okay.
So if you can see where the back porch was, the back porch will stay intact. There's going to be a wall built here, which will become first floor.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
already enclosed anyway.
It's over the enclosed. The upper
Yeah.
above is the
It's
second.
got glass
So
on one side.
where that it's glassed in, it's open to that
Okay,
back
Oh,
that
side.
makes
okay.
more sense.
I know, it's
Not
the
that
same.
it's my business, but
This seems very straightforward.
And that is it. We do have a number, because I think this was continued from the last meeting.
No, this was the
Oh,
one
we
that
never-
was speaking, this was the one that was going to be due on the night that the meeting was held.
Yes.
okay.
So we're getting here.
Anything from the public on Hulbert Ave? Okay, Jeff, we have everything we need to close.
Yes.
You're ready to close, aren't you, Paul?
Yes.
Okay.
Ready to close?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Real quickly, Mr. Chairman, actually just got 2 emails from Mark Ritz. He's the representative for number 10, Ergon, and
Okay.
for 13, Gifting.
Okay,
Clearly by his absence, he's requested those to be continued until the 19th.
good.
So he can debate it over. So, since that was
okay, thanks. And McGivney?
done.
Yes.
So now we're going to Rabbit Run?
Okay,
Yep.
so that takes us to Rabbit Run, 24 Rabbit Run Road. You know why Pink Floyd just starts coming to mind on this one?
That's great. If only they were moving in. If only Pink Floyd were moving into this house in
I always have
Rabbit.
like moments of John excited when I for whatever reason.
You always have what?
Moments of John.
Oh, yeah, John.
Yeah,
Hudson,
yeah. You don't
yep.
have to.
And I have to say that the Pink House was a lot of fun.
You were there too,
I like
huh?
the people, too.
Oh, yeah.
But
That was
I
Wagner's
can't tell you
house.
what I found in the wetlands, you know.
Yeah, sure.
That was when
This is a
Wagner's
notice of
mother.
intent to
Wagner's
construct a
house,
new
right?
single-family house
No.
on the
Pink.
property. It's less than 3,000 square feet in size. And there's a reason for that, because of MISA, the MISA regulations. It's exempt from MISA if it's less, it was an existing lot and under 3,000, but anyway.
It's really jammed in there.
And lawn area. It's outside of 50, there's the resource areas on the side are BVW down in through here, and also up and through here, and then there is some coastal bank. There is no coastal bank in this area because where the land subject to coastal storm flowage hits the slope, it's less than 10 to 1. So there was no coastal bank in any of this area in here. But up over in this area along Jen's property, there is a coastal bank in there. We are maintaining 50-foot setback with all structures from any wetland boundaries, and maintaining a 25-foot vegetative buffer down in this area, and the rest of it just stays alone, stays undisturbed. So we're definitely altering less than 50% between 50 and 25. Okay. No fertilizers, no irrigation between the 50 and 100, between 25 and 50. Any irrigation, any lawn area that we have up there, outside of 50, we would use less than 3 pounds nitrogen per 1,000 square feet per year in 3 successive applications. And any irrigation would have sensors and be directed away from the wetland resource area. Sensors to detect rainfall and timers. So we are meeting. We also, this is an isolated wetland on the adjacent property. We're also honoring the 50-foot setback and 25-foot setback there. Okay.
Is all that great, I mean, this is topography as it is right now?
Yes.
So it'll be grading, all of this will be graded on this footprint there, see how that's changing.
They're going to do walkouts and try to minimize any grading right around the house.
Okay.
So they won't do major grading in there.
Okay. Any waivers required for this?
No waivers
waivers.
required.
Okay.
And the septic system location is outside of the buffer zone back in that area, adjacent to another septic system that's in there by easement.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember to get it. Yeah, it was disinherited.
Right.
My mother.
Any other questions from the commission?
We do have to continue this. We are waiting for natural response.
Oh, okay.
We did file with
Well, let's just make sure there's nothing. Anything from the public on Rabbit Run?
Crazy.
Okay, seeing that. So anybody have any other issues with this? That otherwise we can just, if Heritage comes through, Jeff can write up a
Yeah, I don't see any.
permissive order, I think. Okay. Continue to the next hearing. Okay, so unless I hear an objection, we'll continue this until the 19th. Okay, thank you. Okay, Sisk, 153 and 155 Walnut Road.
David Haynes for the applicant. This is out on Walnut Road, out past the Walnut, Atlantic Ocean on one side, Nantucket Harbor on the other side. And what we're asking for, it includes 2 parcels. It's 153, which is the primary parcel, and 155, which is next door, because it's a stabilization problem of project of a blown-out dune next to the house, and it is blown. It didn't know where the property line was, and it blew out on the other side of the property. And we'd like to do some stabilization there. Mary Ann Hanley is here representing the abutting property. So obviously we have land under the ocean on both sides. We have coastal beach. We have coastal dune in this area, and a dune field. Basically, this area is all a dune field on top of marine sediments. And the project involves trying to stabilize this blowout area. I don't know if you were able to do a site visit out there. If Jeff, did you do it, Jeff?
I have gone out there,
Yeah.
yes.
It's blown out. Apparently, 10 years ago or so, they did some work on the house to waterproof it. Why you have to waterproof a foundation in the dune of the water table, I don't know, but they needed to, and they hadn't written permission, or not written permission, they had permission from whatever. And they went in there and they did it, and it caused it to become destabilized, and it's blown out since then. So what we're trying to do is to get it back. I have, at my suggestion, they have removed some fencing and things like that that was around the shed, and just made more wind tunnel effect, and fencing across here. We are proposing in this area where the dune is blown out, is to do a maze of snow sand fence in there to trap it, and to plant with beach grass in this area. Also, this area is we're going to do beach plum out in this area to block the wind coming in, anything that would come in from the northwest, and try to slow things down and get the sand to start accumulating. They have tried putting seaweed and brush and things like that, and there has been some success.
There's a picture that I was going to ask you, maybe that's a good, what is the dark brown stuff? Is that just
It's
vegetation?
seaweed.
Yeah, it looks really not right. Okay, so they pulled that out then.
They haven't pulled it.
But that would be proposed perhaps? With
We could pull it out.
I'm sorry.
It looked here, or yeah. See, I thought it was soil, like, it looked like,
Right.
it looked like soil. and I was-
Right.
It's seaweed.
Yeah,
It's seaweed. There's seaweed and there's brush piled in there.
yeah, neither of which, I mean, are
Is
good.
that, this is here?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, I was wondering.
It just looked really odd when I saw that. I'm like, wow, that,
Okay.
that's weird.
This,
We are before natural heritage on this, and we haven't, I have spoken to them. It's this area that they're concerned about, and I think we're going to be all right with them, but, so we do have to continue for 2 weeks. So any changes, and there are a couple of issues that I want to bring up with you anyway. There is some beach grass coming into that area. There is seaside goldenrod coming into that area. Obviously, we're going to avoid that and try to keep anything that's coming in there, put in the snow and silt sand fence. And speaking to the applicant, he would, if possible, he'd like to jumpstart it a little bit and do some nourishment on top of it by putting some sand in that area, go along with removing the material that's the seaweed and the brush that's been piled in there, remove that, and then he would like to put in some more sand. I was going to just put in the sand fence and let it build up naturally, but he'd like to jumpstart it if that's all right with the commission.
So we're talking about putting sand along here to
Yeah.
smooth it over?
Yeah,
So-
and
so-
this is the whole area where it's just blown out. And you can see the scarp up there that it's created. And this area there
Yeah.
used to be sand up to the deck
Right.
in through here. So yes, remove all this material and then put sand, and we'd like to put some sand in there.
How much?
Hmm?
How much? Seems a reasonable question.
Probably, yeah, I haven't done the math on it. Probably 3 or 4 feet.
and where would the sand
I
be
guess the
from?
question would be,
Where
Right, it's a reasonable question. So it would be rebuilding the dune.
you're going to be looking for
Sand.
grain size analysis instead of, we don't want to put,
And sort of a profile.
topsoil types, or
Yeah,
we want dune sand
You
in
want
there.
dune sand.
yeah, it's probably.
Where would
500
they get that
microns.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably.
Where's the sand from?
We haven't come up with that yet.
Seems like we're complicating life a little bit.
That's what I said.
It's probably a good idea, though. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at restabilizing, if you just put the sand fence in and then plant, you're going to keep that low area. because The plantings are going to take over. and
The beach grass should be.
Should come up. through
Should be
there.
coming up, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but if you're adding sand, then normally we ask for
Oh,
profile.
no, I completely.
oh, yeah. I think it's not a bad idea to add the sand.
Right.
I apologize, because this is something that just came up over the last couple of days that they wanted to do.
Well, it's got to continue
My
anyway.
apologies, please.
Just to be clear, usually, typically, what we require, I know we're all becoming experts on sand nourishment at this point, is
Replenishment,
is
please.
yes, whatever we like to call it, is to verify that it's compatible sand with
Yes.
what's there. How many cubic yards are going to be going in, and kind of what that's going to look like, the time frame for that, and then usually, obviously, your planting schedule for when that's going to happen is usually what we see.
Well, there's also, they're changing up their path a little bit and adding a little stair. There's other parts of this.
Yeah. I mean, okay. The other aspect of the project would be, right now, there's a pathway across the dune. If you look at one of the photographs, you can see actually, there is an old, that's a railing. That is a railing to an old boardwalk across there. What I have proposed is basically a removable boardwalk, either planks or a roll-up situation. We're also open to putting in a permanent raised boardwalk. I wasn't as much in favor of that because it causes wind and scour and everything else. But if the commission would prefer the other kind, we could do that. I thought the roll-up was a nice solution.
Why would they want to do anything besides walking through there? I mean, it seems pretty nice now.
Well, I was trying to maintain the stability by putting a boardwalk down and then pulling it out in the fall.
Wouldn't the plantings and the
We're
snow fence do
anticipating-
the same thing?
Well, not on the pathway.
On the pathway?
The pathway to the beach.
Oh, they might get sand on their
They've been
feet.
walking across, and it is depressed. I'm trying
They tend to get eroded and
trying to get it
trenched.
back up again. Whatever the commission's preference is on that. The other thing we're doing is we'd like permission for there's already still a snow sand fence down here in the jagged pattern that matches what's been on the abutting properties. We'd like to keep it in there. There's no nourishment proposed. Natural Heritage did have questions about that. They don't want any of the work to be done, any major work to be done on that area. They asked, I submitted a letter to the commission basically describing how the work would be done. It would be done by hand, with hand tools, and they did not want it to, or they're going to get back to me with an opinion about whether they want the timing of it to be after September.
I would think they would want it,
I pretty much guarantee that's coming.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's either got to be very early or
It does have to be, I'm sorry,
September 30th to April 1st.
it happens to be where the snowy owl is going to see.
Is it?
Just a complicated matter. Perhaps I'll keep my mouth shut.
One of the reasons I got away from the raised boardwalk there would be you'd probably have to put railings, and I know Natural Heritage in the past has been opposed to us using a railing in an area where there's potentially plovers because the predators sit on the railings.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Put a bunch of nails on the top of it.
The rollout might be fine. I mean, I wouldn't do anything for the path, but if it's seasonally removed and it allows sand movement, you just don't want to choke some of the areas that should be receding what you're rebuilding. So that's
Or a removable boardwalk, I guess, if they want to do it that way. It's
yeah.
fine, whatever, your
Yeah, you
discretion. in a
always put
sense.
one like that high that's still up a little bit. So just basically this plywood type thing you put down.
Whatever, yeah.
But the rollers are. I just don't want to widen this. I just don't want to widen this a ton. That's
That-
Yeah.
it doesn't go far from a.
And that's one of the reasons we want to do it, is to make sure people don't stray off of it.
Yeah.
Stay on.
Just another couple of quick questions. You're just going to use the kind of old-fashioned snow fence,
Just like what's in here.
Yeah.
I like. I
I like that look.
And it's on wood posts.
No 8-foot piers.
And I think you mentioned fertilizing if you planted beach grass.
I talked to Emily, I sent this to Emily, Conservation, Land
Council.
Council has a deed restriction, conservation restriction on this property, so I sent them a copy of our application, and that was a comment that she came back with, is that it doesn't need fertilizer. I mean, that was my instinct, but I read it in something else, and I said, okay, well, that's...
Or sometimes they'll put just a dab in the hole with
Yeah.
with the plugs, but it's a very small amount. But if they're opposed to it,
Yeah,
then,
and you really don't need it.
yeah, I mean, in this situation.
And also the beach plum that I've got proposed down here.
Okay, that sounds good. Anything else from the commission? Anything else from the public?
This is all. We have a letter from. Does the land council have to submit a letter since they have a conservation restriction on it? Okay.
Okay, so we'll be expecting to hear from Heritage on this, and continue for 2 weeks? Okay, unless I hear an objection, we'll continue this for 2 weeks. Okay. Thanks, David.
Thank you very much.
So stock got continued. So Bartholomew, 52 Tennessee Ave.
We're not even done.
What do we say?
Would have been for half credit for it.
Bye, guys. Thanks for coming. Emily will be meeting with you guys soon. These are 2 people that'll be interviewing you.
All right. Sorry, I'm standing.
Okay, good. Before the applicant, Big Aspire Blackman Associates. I'm before you tonight with a notice of intent for an application for the upgrade of an existing septic system within the buffer zone to a water and vegetated wetland salt marsh area located along Hither Creek, or right up near the head of the creek, almost where it becomes kind of the ditch. The project involves there's a septic system that has failed due to inadequate separation distance to groundwater. So what we're proposing to do is to rip out the old leach trenches, which are shown a little bit lightly in here in the gray. They're essentially right underneath where we're proposing to put in the new system. There's not a lot of area on this property available. And then to put in an elevated leach bed consisting of infiltrated chambers. The application, again, due to the lot size and the constraints, we're in, we don't have a lot of alternatives or options here. Because we're not increasing the design flow, we're in a situation of maximum feasible compliance with respect to the Title V regulations. Further, there's another level of complication, if you will, or situation where this property owner is agreeing to enter into the administrative consent order process that the town has established. It's very similar to the application you heard for Men's maybe 6 months ago, I think it was, on Ames Ave. And in this case, what we're proposing is that even though we're within the buffer zone, within 100 feet of the vegetated wetland, we are beyond 50, so we meet the requirement. The application meets the requirements of Title V, subject to local upgrade approvals that are needed, that are listed here for a size reduction in the overall leach area, as well as setback reductions. But it doesn't need a variance, if you will, from Title V. However, it doesn't meet the local health protection regulations or the Conservation Commission regulations in terms of having a soil absorption system within 100 feet of a wetland. So really, we're asking for a waiver on the to allow the septic system to be within 100 feet. It's further away than what's there right now, and it's higher up than what's there right now. However, in a lot of situations, my understanding would be that the commission would require an innovative alternative technology system to be installed. The case that has come up, of course, is that the town has made all of these property owners aware that sewer might be coming. So they've put forth through the Board of Health regulations this whole thing with this ACO, where I don't want to, all the details, but essentially, or maybe I will if you have more questions, but property owner can get an estimate for the cost of the system for a full upgrade, which would include the IA component, stop putting money into an escrow for a certain amount of time under the terms of the ACO with the town, recorded documents, all handled through the health department. And then at such time, if sewer is not available, that money gets used to put in the IA system. If sewer is available, that money gets used to go towards the sewer connection. Again, how that all exactly ties together between different regulatory bodies, that's sort of up to you. But we are putting forth an application that doesn't include the IA system on the basis that they'll enter into the ACO.
Art, is this property to the property to the southwest, is that the land bank property that was bought from Nancy Chase? Is it the one next to that?
It would be
The open
to
space?
the southwest. Yeah.
So it's next door to land bank.
Crossing the boatyard.
Does that help?
Okay,
Yeah.
yep.
That's the, is it the Deere property just to the south, I think?
Well, there, yeah, but
Mhm.
this is,
Is that,
Mm-hmm.
this might help
Okay.
you as well?
yep.
That part of the creek has some of the runoff from the dump.
Sure, yeah, I would, I
Yeah.
mean, I know, well,
What the
I
biggest
don't know, I
problems
guess
are
is
the
what
are the
I-
septic
This is
systems and the
the
fertilizer.
property that was bought by the
I have a-
land
I
bank
have a
from
well,
Nancy Chase, right
like
next to it.
200 yards from here that I've been measuring for years.
How far down
They
is the
built a
well?
park.
'Cause the
Like
land
So, I
is
mean,
very
it just
shallow.
doesn't,
Yeah,
so they're never
eight-
going to have a
8
septic
feet, 10
there,
feet.
that's my point.
In fact,
There'll never
those
be a
wells-
septic next door,
Yeah,
because
Well,
that's,
we've got two conversations going here. Let's get down to one.
Could I just see this again? Thank you.
So really, I think that, you know, the basis for our waiver remains net benefit in terms of increased horizontal and vertical separation distance. Though it may not go the greater benefit that you might always ask, but it's because they'll enter into the ACO.
Right.
So that's really the whole proposal. There's also relief needed for setbacks to two of the wells in the neighborhood, and so we'll be going to the Board of Health at the meeting on the 20th for those reductions. And again, my understanding is that you know, the only way that those would be granted is subject to entering into the ACO, and that's the basis. And again, the Nantucket regulations with respect to setbacks from wells, the Nantucket health protection regulations are even more stringent at 150 feet. But we're showing the 100, and we actually can only really provide about 93.
What elevation will it be above what it is now?
Well, I have the bottom of the bed set at about 5'7" or about 6, and so that's about 1 foot below grade. The bottom of the existing is probably about 3 feet, so I'd say you'd see an increase of at least 2 feet. And we're proposing to provide, so it's a 4-foot groundwater separation distance. So that's also, you know, a reduction from what would normally be required. The issue would be if we start getting higher, so we'll have to put walls and other stuff.
Yeah.
And again, is that, you know, that's what would be allowed if the, you know,
So it's not even 5 foot or 6 foot, it's
we're
4
we're
foot?
asking for a reduction to 4 feet. So that's another, you know, again, if the commission, you know, doesn't have to go along with that, if you want a greater separation distance because it's not IA, that's something else that, you know, you could ask for and we could look at. The instructions that are coming out of the health department, if you will, and this is where I'm kind of, just for the discussion, is to Band-Aid these systems if the people will go into the ACO. And when I say a Band-Aid, essentially what that means is, you know, coming into compliance with Title V, which is not nearly as strict as the local regulations, under maximum feasible compliance policy type guidelines, versus full compliance or a greater level of compliance that would be required without the ACO.
But it
So
wouldn't
can
be
we,
five.
I'm sorry.
It
Can-
wouldn't be, go ahead.
Can we condition it on a temporary basis so that within a certain period, if
Well, I think the ACO does that, doesn't it? Is there some kind of time frame on there?
There is a time frame in the ACO, but I don't know what kind of a regulatory trigger there may be. In other
Right.
words, we can try to, you know, I could submit to you all the information on the ACO. I know that you have up to 20 years that they could pay. The question is, does the town know when they're going to know if they're going to do it and when the pipes will be installed?
Well, and Jeff always cautions us on writing our regulations, referring too much to regulations and other. My question was, it doesn't actually comply with Title V then, if it's 4 foot?
Subject to a local upgrade approval for the groundwater offset. So if the Board of Health on the 20th grants that application is allowable for that reduction, no greater than that, to the 4 feet under, I've cited the section of the code right here. So that's why, you know, a lot of times I come into you with sort of a site plan that shows septic, not all the details. On something like this where the entire project is based on the septic, this is the same septic plan that will also go to the Board of Health. And again, if this commission, you know, was to say that, you know, because there's no IA, we want 5 feet, I don't want to get stuck between boards. I'd rather just know it. And that's probably not, you know, going to have some implications here. As an engineer, I'll have to address those. But so that we're clear, the reason that I've looked for that reduction is on the direction that if you're going to enter the ACO, it should be the simplest permittable repair, if you will.
Right, and so if we can condition the repair, in other words, if it doesn't go in, then it has to be pulled out.
But what happens, if I may, if you don't have a sewer line, you can't pull it out because you essentially, there'd be a taking. The person couldn't use their property, right, without a septic
Well,
system.
to upgrade it, excuse me.
Oh, you mean finish the upgrade
Right.
after a certain time?
Right, to give your client, you know...
How do you do that if the order only has a life of 3 years?
Mhm.
I don't
That's
know.
the problem.
It's just- right.
But I'm just trying to
Yeah.
help you save your client money in the short term.
But an extra foot or two of soil is not a whole lot of money compared to an
really.
IV system.
No.
I mean, I won't
Right.
sign off on it, I'll tell you that right now, no way, 4 feet won't do it. It's not,
Is
it's not enough.
this seasonal or year-round? What is?
I always have to assume on Title, it's year-round. I mean, that's the basic. Title V doesn't, except for tight tanks, doesn't distinguish between.
I know the system was in use in December.
Yeah.
Happened to be on a neighboring property, and there were people still residing
Yeah.
there, so.
Where's the good doing tight tanks in situations like this? They're cheap and,
Well, the tight tank situation, of course, is that then under Title V, you have to go to the seasonal deed use restriction. So that's the only, that's the only real way, unless you can prove you have absolutely no alternative. Now, if I was to get stuck in a situation here where the Concom wouldn't approve an on-site system, that might force or create that. But again, I'm just saying this to put it all out there because it's all complicated by the other part of the town with the ACO and the sewer issue.
and I totally understand that, I'm not trying to pitch
No,
in between the.
it's fine. I
don't
want you to
agree with the health
understand
department.
the reductions that are being asked for within 100 feet of the salt marsh, 4-foot groundwater, offset. That's really, in term and conventional treatment. With the stipulation of paying thousands of dollars a year, they're going to be facing, that additional payment, if you will, for the sewer. And I don't know what else really how else to. Obviously, if full compliance is going to be required by the commission, nobody's going to enter into ACOs with the health department. So I don't, that's.
And I think all in all, no matter what, we're better off if this ever gets sewered, that these people are ready to go into the sewage.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but 10 years worth of non-sewered sewage going into Heather Creek might be
Yeah.
in points.
I don't think we're advocating that.
Exactly.
No, but I mean, I don't trust it to go in soon
balance.
enough.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we knew what kind of time frame we were
Yeah.
looking at, but I think it's probably a while.
And it's not
Given the-
something our can speak to. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll put it this way, I don't think that there's gonna be sewer for them to tie into within the lifetime of this permit.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Oh,
definitely,
no.
no. 50 years.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Regardless of what we condition, this
Right.
permit's gonna be long expired before sewering becomes that option. So we're gonna be relying upon that agreement to trigger that back.
Right.
I mean,
Sewering. So the agreement might not even have that much to do with this, since it's beyond the scope of our permit, as far as time-wise. I just am very uncomfortable. I just am.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Is there any harm in trying to ask to see what variances the Board of Health will grant? To go through that kind of time to grant for that groundwater separation? See what that, because typically our septic regulations and the way we assume impacts are not really relate. This is the one time that we actually tie into other regulations, rely upon Title V compliance.
Well, there's 3 variances, 4 that they're seeking. The 100 feet, which you did a good job of synthesizing, the 100 feet to the salt marsh, the 4-foot separation, the traditional system, the 25% reduction in leach bed, and the 93 feet to the wells.
Just thinking out loud, to me, it seems like the big crux and the big impact issue for us isn't the horizontal separation. We're really focused on the vertical separation.
Just no room on the lot to go anywhere else, it doesn't look like.
Oh, I understand.
No,
that,
this is as far as because again, I have to write letters to these neighbors telling them we're going to be less than 100 feet to your well, so I am obligated to get as far as I can from there, which really is this spot. It seems to me from what I'm hearing, as Jeff had alluded to, and again, I don't want to get into it short work, but that the concern is really the 4 foot versus the 5 foot. We're not going to have IA. And, but I guess with the 5 foot, if we were to rework this and not have the IA and the ACO, would that probably suit the concerns on the application, I guess would be my, just so I can get some.
I'd get closer. I would actually, if you're going to mount it a foot, I'd mount it 2 feet. I mean, you're just so close to shallow groundwater there. But yes, it would be better to have at least 5 foot separation. I don't know how it changes the plans as far as the mounding. You were saying you had to put fences.
Yeah, I'll just have to work on it. I mean, that's, you know.
Did you go to the Board of Health to ask for the 5 foot separation variance?
That's still a variance.
I'm going there on the 20th, and I don't, I don't know whether they would say 4 or 5. And it seems to me that in terms of sort of keeping everything moving and not getting overly complicated, that I should probably continue this hearing until the 19th. And then speak with my clients, do some engineering drawings, see what the 4 or the 5 looks like, come back to you with some revised information. Perhaps I'll submit information directly, I know it's from another portion of the town, but I'll compile the ACO stuff for all of you and give you a little more information on that.
I got a weird thought. How about introducing a compost toilet into the whole?
That'd be awesome.
Here's the issue with the composting toilets.
What does the state have a problem with that?
No, well, it's a functioning issue with the places in Nantucket that don't have basements. If you don't have a basement with let's put it this way, with a basement with a composting toilet, you can put a hopper in the basement.
Right,
It doesn't require servicing all the time and that sort of a thing. When you don't have a basement, you essentially, composting toilet has a drawer on the bottom of it, and with each activity or day, you turn it over and put the stuff in. And then you still have to put an on-site system for gray water.
Right.
So you're not out of,
Exactly,
but your nitrogen loading would then be greatly reduced.
That's what I'm thinking.
But again, if that was the case, why would they enter into the ACO?
Well, they shouldn't. I mean,
But that's, again.
But at the same time, if you're on such a fine line as this one, it's like, it would seem, from an economic point of view, anything, it's not a terrible big expense.
or instant.
Well,
can
it's
bring you,
I mean, what I found is that so far, and I've done, I've designed a lot of systems, and I've done and permitted one composting toilet and gray water system, and a year later they ripped it out and put a tight tank in.
Yeah, we don't have a tight tank option.
And well, they went with the seasonal deed restriction.
Oh, yeah.
And that was sort of because they said, well, that's better than this toilet.
They hated it.
And I'm just letting you know that it's in. Other folks have come in other states allow incinerating toilets. Massachusetts plumbing code doesn't. Now that would be a much more usable alternative, but it's just not something we can go with. So I just want to give you the explanation why I know that's and you're still putting in. You'd be putting all of this same thing in for the gray water. That would be your gray water system.
Right.
What I'm showing right now, exact same thing.
Could they ask for a variance for the tight tank? When you were saying they don't allow, they have a seasonal restriction on tight tanks.
The only way would be if DEP would determine that tight tanks are on the basis of no alternative, essentially. And so the path would be essentially probably a denial that then I use to show them that, I can't, they're not letting me do that there. And obviously things then get just, that much more difficult. The other thing, of course, with the tight tanks is then you're into regular expense. It's another major maintenance issue for users of the structure.
Oh, believe me, I know. I had to pump mine every 3 weeks or
right.
4 months.
And so I guess I think that the best way would be for me to look at what I can do here with this. I've heard sort of the concern with respect to that, and then I get you the other information that may give you a greater level of comfort on the ACO mechanism. Maybe even, talk to Richard.
So when you mound these, what do you use as mounding material? What's
Clean Title V sand. So
Sand.
Title V sand is a specific gradation that's listed. It's got to meet a certain set, but it's basically good pit sand, good clean pit sand, and so that's what the requirements are to remove the existing leach system plus any deleterious material out at least 5 feet beyond what we're putting in. Fill that all back in with clean sand. Clearly, Nantucket, we have no problem with the porosity of the surrounding, strata. And then come back, build it back up with sand, and then 8 inches of topsoil. Make your mound.
Would even something like Perkrite or be cheap enough?
Perkrite is, again, an issue on such a small system, a 3-bedroom system. When you start getting into pressure distribution, see, we're proposing there's an old little pump chamber here. We're proposing to just use that same old pump. You'd be putting in new pumps, headworks, a new O&M contract, all for so that you can use a tube this big. It saves you, about that much height on a larger system. Yes, on systems over 2,000 gallons a day requiring pressure distribution. Yes, I, as an engineer, don't think it's a, value and that it's something that really, for the extra $10,000+ for that kind of a system, really gets you all that much, either an environmental benefit or really, it would help the clients for their houses to have the 10 inches lower on that mound, but I don't know that it's worth that kind of a add-on. Much more mechanicals, as you know, the filters that need to be cleaned. That's I don't see it for this application.
So a question that just bothers me about Title V is, what kind of attenuation does a foot of sand do? I can't imagine that. It's really, I think all we're doing is slowing down the first few flushes, and after a while we're just piling it on top, and it's just going to wash down anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing in that sand that's going to capture nitrogen.
There shouldn't be septic systems in sand. You're right. It's not, the transmission rate is
much too high.
It's too high.
Right. We all know that's just what we deal with.
Title V is designed for soil on the mainland.
Yeah, I think we're dealing with kind of moot points here. Which, I mean, I know the regs are the regs, and it's best to stick with them, but if it's not really attenuating anything, why are we arguing about this?
Well, it's still doing better than nothing.
Yeah,
I mean, air attenuation or water, I mean, it's still giving it another hour or two time before it gets to the groundwater. It's really, you're buying time more than absorption.
Okay.
I'll come back, and I've heard the sort of the discussion.
Yeah, thanks, Art.
Bring back some information on the 19th, but hopefully a briefer.
Well, let me go to the public. Anything from the public on Bartholomew? Yeah, Ms. McKinnon.
Thanks. I kind of just have a general question if the health department's been in touch with you guys at all about this, because I mean, it's great for Art to provide the information, but if you're going to end up seeing more applications that are involved in this, I don't know, maybe it would be worth trying to find a way to have some communication with them just so that you guys can understand a little bit more about what they're doing. It's obviously kind of
That sounds good.
Already.
Yeah.
This came up with us before already.
So whether someone from the health department comes to the meeting or just some communication, it just seems like, I mean, again, it's great for the applicant to provide the information to you, but it seems like it'd be good for you guys to.
They might not understand how much a bind it puts us into, because we've got a 3-year permit, we've got our regulations, we've got the state regulations, and they're asking us to waive 3 or 4 different parts on the hope and a dream that, I mean, I hope they Nantucket, but I'm not putting thousands of dollars into that.
Count on it.
It's a there's a big bill on that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to bet. I mean, it's hard for us to legally permit
I
something.
mean, I can definitely track down, at least to start off, the paperwork. I know I have got it to send around.
There's a web page set up for all the documents.
Would it be helpful for you guys for me to try to get
Just some basic, yeah.
Yeah, I'd have them, because I don't think they have any idea what a bind it puts us in.
Yeah, that'd be great,
I'd
yeah.
actually love to know about it because
It'd be a nice two-way.
That would be helpful.
well, ironically, it affects me too because the talk is, from what I understand, this pipe is going to go down Millbrook Road,
Oh, really?
and they're going to force everybody on my road to hook into it. So, I'm really curious. I mean, I know the timeline I'm thinking it's going to be, but the thing, Tennessee Ave is even kind of off the beaten path.
Right.
You know.
My
50
follow-up
years.
question is if I can arrange Richard or Artel to come and talk about it. I know this one's kind of pressing, if we want to deal with this. My gut feeling tells me that the meeting on the 19th is going to be pretty long.
It looks pretty long, yeah.
You
Yes.
guys like me to try to schedule it for the first meeting in March? March.
That would be good, yeah.
Well, or the second one, I'm gone March 5th.
Second one's fine too. So sometime end of March, early April.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Art.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so everything else is continued to amended orders. Sullivan, 60 Cliff Road. Oh, did I miss that?
You took the advancement.
We still haven't amended.
If I have a look at this.
Oh, no.
That's what I thought we were on the
Thanks,
amended
I'll give it
order.
to
Yeah,
you.
okay. That's all.
You know what I'm going to do? That's my stamp copy. I have a stamp copy. I'll give you that one.
Okay, thank you.
And you can use it to your heart's content.
Excellent.
And then I'll bring it back.
So is Sullivan, I'm confused, is Sullivan continued? No, then, no, it's not. Then
No.
What are we, I guess I'm confused about what,
Or on amended orders.
yeah, right.
Oh, okay, good.
That's what I thought I said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nancy was talking about everything being continued.
Thank you. For the record, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors, before you with an amended order of conditions for a property owned by 60 Cliff Road LLC, whose principal is Brian Sullivan. We were before you on this notice of intent back in July, I believe, in which the commission ordered a notice of intent for the replacement of this slate stone patio on the back of 60 Cliff Road, at which time we were putting a wood deck over it. The applicant has not done that work yet, and requested that I ask the commission if they would entertain the thought of expanding that wooden deck. I'll go right from here. This is the existing patio here, is continuing along the backside of the dwelling here and wrapping into the existing shower side on the backside of the house in this area here. The photos will show you, this is the patio here, and then this is the area we're talking about extending through this area here to the backside of that deck. This is what the backyard looks like now. It's basically the lawn area here, a planting bed, and then it continues on to this shower area here. This itself is work that's tucked right up against the backside of a bordering vegetated wetland. As we've got the backside of this lot is lawned right up to the edge here, and we have a wetland which is right along the backside of the property. And in fact, in this area comes into the property over here, where this is all lawn. It does all occur within the 25-foot setback to that wetland in the backside here. So this is what was approved, and this red here is what they're looking to expand to the backside here.
Could I ask a question through
Yes,
you?
sure.
How does that affect ground cover?
There is no effect on ground cover. The decking wouldn't affect ground cover because it's not expansion of the structure.
Okay.
So it's not a ground cover issue from the zoning code perspective. It's a simple building permit with the building department, but on this end, it's a waiver.
Yeah, it's a waiver.
Now, we didn't even need a waiver just to expand to replace the stone and concrete with the deck. But in this case, we're actually extending it out along the backside here.
The deck is probably better than the stone in terms of a pervious
Clearly,
material.
Yeah. Getting rid of that.
Getting rid of the stone.
And the backside here is essentially what I think they're trying to create here is an area where they're just basically limiting their backside use here to the deck itself, and then access over to the shower. And now you've got, as opposed to right now, they come out this side door and access the shower here. They're simply just expanding out this back area.
I grew up in this house. I know all about it.
But it is
Diana Peterson.
within the 25.
It's a structure in the 25, yeah.
Or it was just replacing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Royal
a new
and Dolly
structure
Peterson.
within the 25.
It was Dorothy Brill was the grandmother.
Yeah, whereas this one was, yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
the
the
first
waiver-
one was no problem.
Yeah, and what we've asked is, if the waiver is granted, it's basically a reconfirmation of the waiver that runs with the existing order of conditions. If I can get a sense maybe for where the commission is going with it, maybe we can talk about the size of it and whether or not there's anything.
Yeah, I don't
If
know.
there's anything else that we can do other than what's already out there.
I think
I think it's not a good area.
that the whole reason we permitted the other deck into 25 was because it was over that existing patio.
Existing
Yeah.
structure.
It's called pushing the envelope.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and we're tough on everybody else with the 0.25,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Well, what I would then, if there's anything to be entertained, it would be to do that right there. Is just to close that off right there.
To do what now?
And closing that interior, basically close from here to the edge of the structure, not expand the structure any further back, and just
Just to
infill,
fill
and infill that area right there. And that would be,
So then you wouldn't have this part.
you wouldn't run that whole
You just
back
go
area.
across,
You'd just
straight
go
across,
Straight across.
straight across.
Infill the backside of the structure, with a deck, not a structure, but with just a deck in that
And
area.
it'd be permeable. I mean,
Yes.
it'd be
What would be the
open.
dimensions of that?
I think that's much
About,
better.
Give or take. I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
I know, I'm looking
So
at that.
meaning that it'll just
1
go
inch to
across
20.
like that, and that'll be what it is.
8 by 8 or something.
Because this, forget all that.
Right.
Because it just pushes water elsewhere.
Ornamental plants.
They've ruined the property anyways. They ripped out all the vegetation in the front, and made it all park.
It's 11 across, and there's a bump out about 8 feet.
You better look at their car and the bushes.
It's just about 800 square feet?
No, 80.
80, oh.
Yeah.
Oh my God, does that work? Yeah, yeah.
Sweet day.
Yeah.
And that's what it would be. So, I mean, obviously, that would be the proposal, obviously, rather than getting a denial there. I would request that we limit it to the infill of that existing structure on the backside.
That's that picture.
People okay with that?
Look at it.
No, it's got a big rhododendron in
It's
there. whatever.
basically going across like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what
Yeah, it'd be moving all the vegetation there, the landscaping.
it's all landscapes, things like
Paul, that doesn't get them to the shower, right?
No, it's just not going to, yeah.
So
that's
what's the
right.
purpose of it then?
Well, I think it's kind of just that area right now. It's the back area. They can use that back area coming off the deck. And, they'll come out the door and enter it the same way they typically do. The door's going this way, as opposed to reworking the door to come off the backside.
Mhm.
I mean, so.
It's an awful lot of patio.
I don't think it'll be an adverse impact.
I'm more comfortable with that than with the other.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Okay, so, Jeff, do you think we could basically close this with the notion that they bring in
I think if there's one issue with the condition that
they come in with a new plan?
with that plan that's there that Paul has amended here, you know what the amendment is going to be. I'll just keep that plan and then he'll.
Yeah, I'll email you
Yeah,
tomorrow.
he'll provide me a new plan of record tomorrow, and
Okay.
I can update that on the form. He's here. We watched him do it. It's on public record. So it's an amendment. So there's already a stamped plan that's on file for the original order. So it's not as critical. Look at that, even initial date.
Okay, anything from the public on Sullivan? Okay. So do I have a motion to close with the conditions we discussed?
Move to
Closing.
close as amended.
Okay.
Second.
And issue?
Aye.
Okay. Do I have another second then with the issue?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries unanimously. Thanks, everybody.
Carrying.
Okay, do we want to get that minor mod done first, or do
I changed
the...
up the order because I like it better this way.
Okay, then let's go through orders of conditions then.
Don't know. Change plans. That we didn't have any before.
Do we have a packet?
Oh, we did. Sorry.
Boy, we all are out of practice, I guess, or something. Just flying through it. Not either.
So, I guess, Mr. Chairman, I'm just gonna-
Yeah, you just kick it off.
All right, so the first one we have listed there is the Nantucket Island Plant Bank. That was the one that you originally gave me, I think, a draft, then we had a bunch of information come in from the abutter, a ginormous plant set, so I decided to pull off. pool is still open. You still want to pause the land bank one? Sorry, it's not one I drafted.
Oh, okay.
Do we still want to pause the one?
I
Oh,
think
it's the
so,
same one,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, is it anybody opposed to that, the land bank, the park
Do you
project?
have any interesting
No.
conditions they wanted to do? That was my general sense, but again.
Well, it sounds almost as though it can be used by the elderly, too.
We might all be having meetings
creeping
there.
up there.
Maybe when it's done, we'll take a big
Wheelchair
field trip and have a little picnic and we can go.
Like a Segway tour right through there.
All right. So coffee was the next one. I actually have this one here.
Yep.
This was for the pool outside 50 feet. This is a non-waiver project. This is for the installation of a pool and pool fence outside 50 feet. The only condition I added is I complete the pool one, that the pool is only to be emptied and discharged to an area outside of jurisdiction of the commission.
How do they do
Okay.
that, Jeff? Do they bring a truck in and take it out
Run a hose.
What's
Or
that?
they run a hose, yeah.
to a truck?
A lot of people have trucks now that come and pump it out.
Mhm.
And I don't think
Well, I was going
people-
to say, because it's wetlands right near it, do they run it down?
They have
the
to
creek?
run at least 100 feet away, but you could argue it's still going to roll downhill, but it'll infiltrate.
They don't drain them too often.
People here are not as bad about
No.
using chlorine, and it's salt water, so it's not as big an issue. I
Okay,
think they tend to pay people to come pump it out.
yeah, I think so.
Most people do.
Okay, is everybody okay with this?
Yeah?
Have a motion to issue as drafted.
So moved?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries unanimously.
Did we also vote on Codfish Park, or?
Yeah.
Oh, we don't.
We have actually.
We don't have one to ask this question.
Okay, we're going to
I
just
didn't write-
flip
okay,
the page and go to Swains Point,
I wrote it, and then all that stuff came in and I decided I'd rather.
250 Pulpus Road, or 260 Pulpus Road, excuse me.
All right, so this was the one that was submitted, this was the order that submits the expansion and marking of the notes for buffer zones for removal of the following utility poles and wiring, and then the removal of the old bridge. Excuse me. As a second condition, that just photographs shall be provided to the commission at the beginning and end of each growing season demonstrating the condition of the new no disturb buffer zones, the disturbed areas from the utility pole removal, and areas from which the portions of the bridge will be removed.
Sounds good.
Anyone else have anything else they'd like to add?
No, I think that was,
Chairman, on that second condition that Jeff just read, I wonder if we could have it read that there's some cutoff on that point, because, I think the point would be.
For like a-
reducing the
3 years.
photographs.
Sorry, I
3
looked
years?
it up, it usually has until a
Stabilized.
certificate of compliance is issued
Okay.
or every year.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, so do I have a motion to issue as amended?
Is everybody cool with this? Okay, so I'll move to issue with that amendment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
As for each and every one, this first one going around, I sent you the wrong one for coffee. The first one is the coffee one that we did, and then the second one going around this one. I know you already saw it for coffee. Correct. I sent wrong.
You said we just
Okay.
signed Swain's?
No, you just signed the one that was up for that one.
We just signed anything.
We'll just sign anything. I've caught him once, but.
Okay, that motion carried unanimously.
All right, and then that one's for us.
So, oh, thank you.
Sorry, usually check them out. I just did.
Here. There's two.
Two of them, okay?
Yep.
Okay, Crow's Nest Way.
This was for the one with the deck. I need to add condition number 20. So I have no construction materials stored in the resource area. We're doing that through there. And we also need condition 20 that the new deck shall not exceed 2 feet from patio.
Okay.
Oh, it's modification and expansion. You want typo? Under permit overview?
Yes, and expansion.
Okay, anybody have any other issues with this? Okay, do I have a motion to issue as amended?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
All right. The next one's sneaky because it's on 2 pages. Because I did put the rate. I haven't had an one too.
Okay, 7 and 9 Grant Ave.
All right, so I have our normal invasive conditions, with the exception of, I missed it when I typed it in and didn't catch it. Number 23, the end of the planting will work within the wetland area and should require an amended order. They actually permitted that in this notice of that, so we can strike out condition number 1.
Okay.
They knocked that out right from the start. Other than that, do you have anything else?
Is this report on number 24, should that be yearly?
Yeah, I actually have that, for some reason I wrote another term about that all reports are required only until.
Okay, so that's close enough.
What are the dots?
I don't know if I put them all together, for some reason I typed it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Have it.
It's great.
Okay.
Sometimes when you get into the street break, they come out in the rear.
No,
A little rabbit went across this snowy
No,
yard.
they asked
No,
for
it's pretty
some
small.
shit
It's
down there to
print.
be a little persistent, and then that's and to be
People
perfectly
say
honest,
rabbit
based
crossing.
on
Oh,
what's
that's
in
what
that
I meant.
neighborhood, I'm a little concerned that when they disturb some of that soil, that we may see the
More, yeah.
the wonderful appearance of things like knotweed and phragmites that are on that bank in
Mhm.
response.
Yeah. That's probably one of the biggest problems is with this is.
That's my hunch, because I know 2 doors down, there's a pretty significant stand of that. So I'm not suspicious that's
Okay, anything else?
No, I think that I'm just was reading through the work. Move to issue as
amended.
As amended.
Strike out.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
All right, and the last draft that's up for consideration this evening. The last one I had was the Kaplan, and that was the 37 Holbert Ave. That was for the enclosing of the final foot of the porch, and then the additions outside of 50 feet from the front. The only condition I put down that was that no construction material shall be stored within the setback. Other than that, it seems pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Issue is drafted.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
And then I get an advance and catch there to draft on both. Real quick, the only other one I wanted to ask about for discussion purposes, Rabbit Run Road, 24 Rabbit Run, that was for the house outside of 50 feet that Mr. Haynes presented that didn't require any waivers from its weight for heritage.
Yeah, that seemed pretty straightforward.
I mean, there's a lot on that lot, but it's all outside the 50, so it doesn't really,
Yeah,
no
there's
waivers, yeah.
next to it, so.
Yep. I think that's fine.
That's it. Cruising.
Yeah, tonight went fast, considering. I guess when everything gets continued, it helps.
We actually closed a pretty fair amount.
Yeah.
I think it's
And
building,
there's still plenty more yet to come. So.
it's building up like storm surge.
This is the one place that joke is kind of fun.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're down to
It's just
minor
sand over
mods,
the
huh?
dune.
Sand through the
I
hourglass.
like that underwater.
Instead of water under the bridge, for us, we have sand.
Sand over the
It's just sand over the dune,
Or the bank, one or the
on
other.
the bank.
Bridge over troubled water.
Okay, so minor mods, Graywood, 14 Mayhew Lane.
had Bridget the story too. It was on the neighbor's property, who was married to the family, then they got divorced.
That was the late night bridge?
Oh, yeah. What you have before you is a request for a minor modification. This was permitted last spring, and it included the construction of the swimming pool and the patio around it. This is the vegetated wetland is down here, the 100-foot buffer zone is right here. This work occurred in here along with the renovation of the house and landscaping. They'd like to put in a hot tub that's about 94 feet from the edge of the wetland boundary over an existing landscaped area added onto the pool area.
Well, who wouldn't?
I do the same.
Yeah.
I would do
the same.
I don't know how I live without one.
I
Don't know either.
I'm surprised we all just are still alive.
I have a hot tub, but it's the bathtub, and every morning I take a hot bath.
That's too much information.
Well, we didn't ask what type of soap you use.
Yeah, I think
That's fine.
that sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion to issue the minor mod?
So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries unanimously. Sorry, Jeff, I didn't mean to diminish your role with
You know
this.
what? That is, you guys are more than welcome to do that. That is-
Anytime, just freight road and road amendment.
Absolutely.
Okay, certificates of compliance.
We're going to jam these out real fast. Not going
Coffin.
fast, but pretty fast.
Actually, he's not here, and he'd be quite well. I wonder if there's something to this.
Are you going to put that in?
Oh,
And we're laughing while you're smiling.
yeah.
That's good, Andy.
All right, real quickly, I guess we'll do it as best we can. I apologize for this small size of the plant, but this was for the construction of Plainfield Road. So Plainfield Road is the one that comes in, and there's the subdivision road that comes in with Windsor Road and Lennox Way. This order of conditions is from 1998.
Say, I've never
It's
heard
old.
of
You guys have missed it. It's out in Wisconsin. It runs in the old Henry Coffin's old land.
Oh, yeah, that place.
On the left side of the road as you're going out?
Yeah, it's past Skinner's and all there. And this connects out.
Yeah.
Burnell Street connects
Oh, okay.
out
Yeah.
over in here.
But this is Skinner's project, right?
No, it's after that.
This is after it. This
Closer
was
to
Henry
Burnell.
Coffin.
Oh, Henry Jr.
That's way in
Yeah.
the back
It was actually Henry III. This is not getting deep into the coffin.
I guess he would be, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
You're right.
So the road is here, and it's as they show. Everything is in compliance. All the stuff is there.
Yeah.
I would recommend we could issue the certificate of compliance.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Oh, it's from 2001, so
Yeah, it's
still-
before my time.
still pretty old.
Okay, and then there's 200 Pulpus Road LLC.
I just gotta get back.
No, I'm far.
Oh, this is the property that sits way back off the road.
Okay.
There's that big, huge wetland in front. It's honestly my least favorite wetland on the entire island.
Oh, is this the tree cooling?
Yeah, this is the cooling property.
I have to be
Well, I
on.
was going to say, yeah, you're 182.
So you two are both off
180,
this one.
180, this is 200.
Let me actually, I'll get two plans. So there's this one. Still good. And then, this was for the construction of the house. They gave me two plans, and I kind of jammed them together. Last one. So the original permit was for the construction, the replacement of this existing house with this one. In the buffer zone, so this is our approved plan. And the house that's there and the septic is in compliance with the permit. And we don't have any other ongoing conditions to include, so I recommend we can approve this one as well.
Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries with Commissioners Carberg and Oktay recused.
I like that one. That was on my Nantucket surveyor's projects. I'm getting close.
Okay.
That was a wetland that we delineated using a breaker bar because the ground was frozen. It was awesome. I
I have a new frozen ground pouring device with a giant hammer on top. It's an impaction hammer. I think you can go through and pour concrete with it.
Who borrowed your blue pen?
JC and I 4 days.
Want to sign with you?
Sure.
All green right?
Yeah.
We need the least favorite ones.
Okay, committees.
There's that little pond.
Or CPC,
I haven't met.
not met. Okay, NPDC.
Had a meeting the other day, and Ian was voted almost unanimously.
Almost?
Almost unanimously.
Just by
to
one
the
vote.
bicycle, bike path,
You and Charlie.
Good.
Oh, good.
yeah,
Nice.
advisory board, yeah.
11 applicants.
He was the new one.
So let's start with getting them plowed, shall we?
All right.
Yeah.
I was hoping Kira would be here tonight so I could complain. Yeah.
They used to be really good about that.
And they
Well-
did earlier this year.
They did Surfside.
Because he's a pedestrian.
They haven't done Hummy Pond.
I said, it's good to have another point of view.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, I guess that's
He got one vote the last time.
not heavily
This time
used,
he got them
maybe.
all.
The mosquito control committee
Showed up.
actually had a meeting.
Well, of course, I was stuck in the snow.
All right.
Wow.
So we had about our education things.
Okay, guys.
Still going.
Let's
So
go.
exciting,
We
I
still need
know.
to pay attention.
Stand up, pay attention. I'll be teaching next week if you're really bored and want to come in to Greenhound and listen to me pontificate. The Mosquito Control Committee had a meeting to get together our educational tools, brochures and handouts, things to give out at the dump, and how to get that information to it. And we're keeping the same team that we used last year, vector disease control folks, and they're very good at reporting. So they'll come in and give us a full report on what they found and where. And I think they're going to start expanding into opening up and cleaning some marshes. So, but we had a meeting, and since John's no longer on the Concom, and I was going to meetings anyway, I was just going to keep going to meetings. But if anyone else would rather, that's fine.
Well, I think you're welcome to.
Okay.
I saw that hands go quick.
Yeah.
Yes. I have to. She does work in my lab, so it's stuff I want to know about. We had a the last coastal management plan meeting was what is today, the 10th? No, it was the 27th. It was last week. Yeah. And we will have the next meeting is next Monday. I think we're just going to do a meeting Monday and maybe the 27th, and maybe we'll be done. I don't know.
Depends how
Yeah.
fast Emily writes.
I thought you had a meeting on Friday the 10th.
Yes, Monday the 10th.
Monday
the 10th. This upcoming Monday. Yeah, we just had it on the.
What time is that one, Sarah?
It is at 5 o'clock in
Right before the planning board.
right before the planning board, and we always meet here.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're too slow.
So,
I surprised you, didn't
huh?
I? I surprised you that I knew where it was.
Yes. And we're getting close. We've got a draft final plan, but we're adding. It needs more meat on it, frankly. We've done a lot of compromising on the plan, a lot. So it's gotten bigger and smaller and bigger and smaller. We should definitely share it with this board when we get close enough to. But it's going to the Board of Selectmen, and I'm happy to give you guys a copy. And if you have any ideas,
I think procedure-wise, I know it'll end up at the Board of Selectmen at some point. Maybe something once that board has finished its final draft, if we land it here and timing permits, if everyone gets a chance to review it, it may be something that if this board likes it, we could certainly put together a letter that says, we recommend and we support the coastal management plan. I think it'll be helpful, but blah, 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 we'll rate it, and then we could provide that to the Board of Selectmen too.
Okay.
So,
Sounds good.
never mind.
I don't know if it pertains to us or not, but I somehow managed to get on the airport advisory committee. Yeah, I know. Well, they
Oh, so
called
did
me.
I.
Oh, yes.
Two of you. Two of you got tricked.
Two. Yep.
Not me.
So did
I don't
Art.
even answer the phone anymore.
I don't represent the Concom. It's not
You're
a
automatic.
Concom
No,
request.
I
It
usually
was,
they have usually an annual meeting that I end up going to, but I led.
It sounds like a serious overhaul of the plan.
Yeah, it's a 5-year, it's a
master plan.
5-year
Yeah.
master plan.
I occasionally get called for questions,
bigger,
but
bigger.
their
Oh,
environmental
no, not with us on there.
steward
You should
there
hear.
is doing a superb
Yeah,
job.
he
Yeah,
is
he
doing
is
very
great.
And he's a
Quality of
snappy
life.
dresser.
It's not about inviting
With his pink
everybody
shirt.
here.
The garden resurrected. Remember the garden?
Yes,
Keep
sure
track of him or what?
Sure do.
Or is he just dapper all on his own?
do. It was circular.
He picks out his own clothes.
Yeah.
Okay, but if anything comes up that's pertinent, I'll bring it up.
Pink and purple.
Okay,
Very classic.
Commissioners' comments. I actually got a call from a Quidnet resident. Apparently, there's a lot of work being done on, and I forgot to bring the address, but next to Fairchild's out there,
All right.
swimming pool, et cetera, going in, and
Without permission?
without coming to us, yeah. I guess I haven't seen it.
Really?
No. Well, yeah, we'll figure that out pretty quick.
I'll get you the address.
If it's next to Fairchild's, I can find it. So if you get the address, if you just email it to me tomorrow, I'll double check it. But
Okay.
I'll be back up to full staff on Monday, so we'll be a lot more on the prowl. All four of us will be around. So
Okay, anything else?
I got some
Okay,
stuff.
Jeff.
I'll let everyone get comfortable. We'll go through some of the stuff quickly. Did everyone at the end of the packet? I know the packet was super, super long. The Land Council sent a couple conservation restrictions
Oh, yeah.
at the end. Did everyone get a chance to look at those?
Oh,
If you
I kind
haven't,
of breezed through them.
I skimmed it.
if you haven't, it's okay. But like the last one, we actually have to sign one of them at some point. If you guys want another 2 weeks to look at it,
Please.
we'll do that. So
Does that hurt anything if we take 2 weeks to read through it?
No.
I
Do
wanted
they want
to,
the
and
Concom to hold these, or?
one of
they
them's
want-
99 acres, and it did look like the Concom was.
yes,
getting
the
it.
one of them, it's the town, it's the land bank granting the town and the Concom on the, it's for the industrial park mitigation that's out there. So it's 99 acres that get held in the conservation restriction. So the land bank usually has us hold
That
those.
looked important.
Yeah, that's important, and I would really rather have the Land Council hold them, because they, I mean, we haven't really got a mechanism to go out and examine these, and we know Jeff doesn't need more on his plate.
Oh, I got staff coming. This is,
Oh, you got staff, okay.
we'll be coming out. So
You're expanding the empire, I see.
Oh, good, well, it's about time.
it's my man. So, well, I don't, we'll take another 2 weeks. I'll just tell Jessie that you guys want a little bit more time to look through it at the land bank, and she'll be fine with that. So
Okay.
she said no rush. She said if I could get you guys to, if you guys had a chance to review it, and I can get you guys to sign it tonight, great. If not,
Probably
the
pretty
19th
much
is
the
fine.
standard,
Yeah.
model,
So
but-
take your time. No
But the
rush.
mitigation, yeah, I saw first 99 acres, the word Concom, and then industrial park, and all three of them were like, oh my God.
So
I should read this.
read them. Take your time, and then we'll reconvene. We'll reconvene on the 19th. We'll deal with it then. All right. On another note, on our favorite topic, I didn't want to take action without your permission on this project, as it's the most watched project in the history of Irvine. We have a possible enforcement situation on the Bluff project. For those of you guys who haven't heard or haven't
one.
seen,
Only one.
well, they're going to lump a few together, but there's a main one. Someone took their own initiative, really without even the town knowing. They installed a pipe to try to help deal with some of the water going down the bank and undermining the back of the
The
geotubes.
gravel that I was.
This is the gravel that you
I
saw.
sent you
Is
that picture.
Really?
is Mark Haley from Haley and Aldridge recommended to them to put in a drain and some sort of infiltration system to deal with that water that was coming off of the bank. It's kind of directly across from the wetland that's on the other side of Baxter Road. So contractor took the engineer's permission and went ahead and installed it because it was at an ideal time to install it while the stuff was there.
They pumped gravel over the side.
Kara and I found out after the fact. We've had pictures come in. It clearly is not part of any permit that we've issued. So my recommendation, I don't see any other recourse other than to issue out an actual enforcement on that and ask for, we can certainly make some choosing. We know we're going to see them in 2 weeks for other things. Either ask for it to come out in advance of that,
Yes.
or we can...
Well, may I?
Sure, this is open to discussion, so...
Jamie, I now understand why Jamie was so insistent when I finally got back after the storm on Monday, yesterday afternoon, to take me out there to have a look. And taking it out, they've certainly been rather generous with the amount of sand that they've put down in various parts of the bluff. And so they have actually capped it so it's not in use right now. So they didn't put it into, they've actually, where the pipe goes over, I guess they've capped it so that it's not actually operating yet. Because they realized that there was, this just came out in the hearing, at the 4 o'clock hearing. So taking it out, I assume they'd have to be clambering, pushing that sand aside.
Make a worse mess.
Well, it's, I'm not sure that maybe we should I think it would be a good idea if all of us got there to actually go down at the bottom and have a look at what has happened before we meet in 2 weeks' time. And maybe just recognize that it's happened, and I would recommend holding off.
It may naturally come out.
But it's gravel being added in with the sand on the...
Well,
I'd
I guess
have to
they put it...
understand
Well, I think part of it, and part of my issue that I have is I haven't been able to quantify what's there. You can't see it now.
No, you can't.
And it disappeared pretty quickly. I don't know to the extent of the work that was done or what's really even there or quantities that were added. It's part of the issue with this is that it went in without any oversight for stuff that's there.
And so I have another question, which is that, if we don't have a mechanism that allows for people to get in touch with us within 24 hours or so on an emergency provision like this, we should. So that then there'll be absolutely no... Well, they'll have no excuse for doing something.
I'll put it this way.
I understand, but their engineer felt, there was wetlands on both sides of Baxter Road there, and when Augie moved, I can't remember his name, the house that is right on the edge now, he filled in the wetland there. So
that's another bad thing.
Which compounded the damage there, and it is weeping out there. And so the logic that water weeping out there is going to affect the sand that they've put there is ironclad. But of course, I'm not sure that we actually agreed to the way that they are building up the bluff, which is why I think it'd be a good idea to go and have a look. And I'm sure Jamie would be happy to take you. Yeah.
He's usually pretty willing. I guess the issue is, one, it was unpermitted.
Yeah, I don't care.
And two, the other real issue that I have is not only did they not provide any notice or request to us, they didn't to the town. I mean, it went in, and our project manager, Kara, found out after it was in. She knew that it had been recommended, and then all of a sudden the next day, we put it in. And that's when...
It's on the contractor to pull it out and make it right. I don't care if it's under 9 million feet of sand.
So...
How big a pipe are we talking?
They could
It's a 4-inch pipe.
And where is it originating?
Where's it starting?
It's
What are
not
they
just the
draining?
pipe they installed, it's the amount of gravel that went over the side. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, how are we going to ask them to separate the gravel from the sand? I mean, I just think we should hold off drafting an order until we find out more about it.
What they did.
What they really did.
All I don't think...
Is there anything else, Jeff, that they've done that you think is...
Yes, I just want to add...
I'm not arguing on their behalf, believe you me.
With the pipe, I think hearing Ian's concerns and others that are there, if it's truly capped, is we know they're coming in. We have to issue a permit out still. I still think it's super important for this board to issue out an enforcement action against work, especially on this project that's unpermitted. Because we can't have, and I hate to put it this way, we can't have the integrity of our decisions undermined by people doing work that we haven't permitted.
Exactly.
So I think that lends to it, and if the action is ultimately decided to, it's got to come out and removed immediately, we can certainly do that. I mean, if people feel more comfortable having to come in and say exactly what went in, exactly what it's there for, and then removing it, and if they...
I
just,
have one quick
I think they should just remove it, because this is just a bad precedent, and they're going to start thinking, well, we can just do this and then we'll get a permit later.
Well, there's no such thing as capping. I mean, covered with sand is not capping. Covered with concrete.
No, I guess they put a cap on the top of the
On the
pipe.
top.
No water can enter the
No,
pipe.
no,
Yeah.
right now, it's not functioning.
Yeah.
It's
So,
the appearance
there are a
of.
number of things that they've done. They've added 3 feet. Jamie told me, openly, rather than the 2 feet, as we had thought that we were
Of
getting.
sand cover over
Yeah.
the tubes.
Well, they said
And-
18 cubic yards, which actually is closer to 3 or 4 feet. The 2 feet is what the manufacturer recommends. The state and state and this
No,
group said 14.
No, I'm talking about above the geotube.
Yeah.
And in terms of, when you look at how much sand has been added and where the geotubes were positioned, you realize that everything else was just a guesswork. I mean, it doesn't look, to my examination of the drawings that we got, it's a different construction. So in terms of actual measurements. So we've got approximately half the beach width that we had. And so it's very obvious when you look north of the Matheson Spur and look at the full width of the beach, and then you look south, how different it is. And that's why I urge everybody to get out and have a look at it on the ground.
Yeah, I've gotten
before.
calls
I
about
think-
no beach left at
And,
high
and,
tide.
and if I may say also, there's been some private requests for Jamie's company to continue putting sand on the bluff to give them additional, to give them a sort of additional angle of repose along there. And again, you get to see that if you go down to have a look. So, thank you.
Yeah, I think from the drawings, one of the things that has confused me, or that I did not envision, when we looked at the drawings of the step of the geotubes with the sand over it, I didn't then realize that there was going to be this highway on the sand
That's what they told us, yeah.
Yeah, for access.
that's so raised.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't look like the picture, I understand.
I just don't think it looks like what I
Yeah, they were saying,
pictured.
oh, well, the public access on the beach isn't important because there's going to be a big highway on top of the geotube that people can walk on. They said that over and over. Everything I complained
Yeah.
about, it looks exactly
Well,
like.
actually, they said that for
They
the
did say
stone
they were going
revetment.
to be able to go over
They
the top
said for
of
the
it.
stone
No,
revetment.
I thought it would be more of a
Geotextile
blend,
tubes,
I
yeah.
guess. The repose would be more
No,
of a
they
blend.
did
Yeah.
say access. on the
They
top
said it
of
would be
and
flattened at the top for
for
access. Yeah.
Well, there's certainly plenty of access. In fact, we could probably play tennis.
Well, we can discuss it. Again, I'll send the as-built out tomorrow. It came into me digitally today, so you guys can start to
Okay.
look at what it's there. Again, it has one profiling section, and then it has the length. They just wanted to be sure that we could get,
Is this, and Emily's had her hand up for a
Emily's-
while.
Sure.
Is the as-built important enough, and it might be, to have independent verification? Because I don't trust these guys as far as I can tell.
well, I'll put it this way. I know the as-built
Yeah,
is
they're in
is
the
stamped
whole
by
survey.
someone that I consider to be an extremely reputable local
They said they
surveyor.
used half a bag, which I
Well, I'll tell you,
assume
the as-built
is
stamped
bag.
by Leo from Blackwell Associates.
Oh, okay.
Actually,
Yeah, that's-
physically stamped the plan.
Concrete.
So I feel pretty
They put
confident. I
concrete
mean,
in
we
the
can
plot
certainly do some
before they
verification,
guys-
but I don't feel like Leo would be pressured
No,
to
I
or
don't
stamp something wrongly. So I feel pretty confident in the plan. I would have no reason to doubt it. I know that survey work too has also essentially been independently done. I mean, it's paid for by the town and by SPPF. I know that all of the design work is by a separate company, and the surveying company has been doing all the staking and location independent of design work. So they're just been on the ground, we're locating, we're staking out, we're doing our job, and then we produce plans that show it. So I would have no.
Does it include the profile of the beach, Jeff, as well as the actual?
I'd have to look at it again.
Because that's something that, of course, may become an issue, and so
Sure,
we need
I'll
proof of
definitely-
the profile of the beach.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the profile itself goes from the
That's-
bank to
that's
the
good
water
enough.
line for the section that they did, but I'll verify that. And you guys will see it tomorrow. I'll send it out when I get into the office in the morning for you guys to look at.
Em, do you have something?
I was just gonna ask, I know I sent Jeff a bunch of photos that were taken and sent to us when this drainage pipe was being installed, and now that it's all covered up and hard to see, the photos are kind of illuminating as to what's actually there, or what was put in, at least in this one area, and I don't know if he could make those available to you guys if you want to see them.
I'll certainly send those along too.
I have them
Send them.
on phone, but it's a 3G, and it would take forever for you guys to do that.
Well, I'll send all those out tomorrow. I probably just
Okay,
bring
that'd be
them. I
great.
just
Thanks, Em.
ran out of time to print off
Yeah,
everything.
and I don't
today.
want to use the, oh, it's covered up, I mean,
Well, I'll put it this way. if you guys want it to come out, if that's the consensus of the board, then I'll include it in the enforcement, then it's got to get removed. I don't.
For one thing, it's probably counterproductive. I mean, I've never seen someone shoot themselves in the foot so many times. It's probably making that worse by having a pipe that's accepting infiltration from a wetland and then funneling it onto the front of the, how is that better?
I don't know where it comes out.
Yeah.
I'm told that the gravel that was installed essentially creates an infiltration area to deal with that
So
water.
they put gravel on the
I mean, it's
face of
probably
the...
not coming out at a rate that's any
So it's
more intense
pouring
than, say,
down
high
that
high.
and
Well,
So,
percolating
the
down.
issue,
No, this is
well,
at
I'll
the
put it
top.
this way. The issue isn't necessarily the materials and stuff were there. The real big issue is they've done unpermitted work.
right.
That
Which they should know better
compromises
on
the
this
integrity,
project, yeah. Well, yeah, your trust factor starts to get a little bit...
especially with the public looking at everything that's happening, and then they'll say, well, aren't you
Well,
guys?
people sent me pictures going, well, I
Well-
never heard a word about gravel. Why are they pumping gravel?
Right.
Well, and
Yeah, I
outside
think
of
they
that, I
should
can't
come out.
imagine permitting a pipe that drains the wetland to the top of the bank.
No, I know it.
I'm curious how much
Completely
rain they
wrong.
got me in the wetland.
They should have thought of these things
I don't care
before.
if it's
they-
90 million
I'll put-
bucks, but-
The greatest stuff in the world into it's still work that requires permitting.
Yeah.
Anyone else, whether if this was my house out by the airport, if I would install it in the buffer zone and we issued out an enforcement, they would get the same enforcement.
Yeah.
So,
Then do it.
I think we should do it.
well, I brought the enforcement with. I have more. So, just as more of an update to this, I had sent it into DEP, and then it's also landed with the Corps of Engineers. We'll just go through all the famous pictures. The pictures of some of the work that was done by the excavator within the surf area that everyone have seen. The Corps of Engineers is kind of taking the lead on that enforcement end because it falls really more solidly within their jurisdiction for that work. The work that was permitted by the certification and within that does not, but they again expanded what they were doing, and now the Corps of Engineers has sent them the letter.
That's the question I asked, yeah.
Well, the work that was permitted was okay. The work that was done, and some of the work was not as was permitted, and now has fallen into the enforcement end and the permitting end of the Corps of Engineers. So they may be now entering the land of 404 permits and 91 permits to
Remember
deal
when I
with.
asked all this? Because I said, you can't possibly build this. I was so clear, sorry, I'm trying not to, that this can't be built without needing a Corps of Engineers permit. And they said, oh, and
They're
they'll
on
always
fine
be
line.
above the high tide. We'll never be anywhere below the...
So that also, I just wanted to give an update to that. So that has come to them. I'll pass that letter along. I got the unclassified version of it today, about half an hour before the meeting, the final one. But that also includes the threat from them of a $200,000 fine for continuing activities and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Is
So-
there a classified version?
No, I don't get the classified
Okay.
versions. I think the classified versions are when they're passing it around internally, and then
Gotcha.
everything you get from the coordinators is very cool because it always starts with unclassified, and then you get and it has this crazy UAE dash with some unique identifier number, and then it will say in big caps like unclassified.
So they're asking for them to now file a 404 for work under the ocean.
It's a little late.
They're not necessarily asking for a 404.
They're requiring.
They're doing a little bit of fact finding on their own, and then with the caveat of continued work of this nature will constitute a blatant disregard of their regulations and all of this. So I don't think the Corps of Engineers has decided ultimately what action they're going to take. I think they wanted to serve notice that they're paying attention, and they are deciding what action they'll be taking. So,
They're watching like everybody.
Well,
So
the SPF
expect-
and it's all built, so why does it matter?
they're going to expect they're going to take some sort of action at some point. They're just still deciding, but when they get information like that in, they're pretty quick to turn around that we've received information, reviewing it, based upon our initial analysis, we believe that you are not in compliance with this, you will require these things, prepare for further updates. If you continue in this, you'll be disregarding this letter, and it'll be at a penalty of no less than $200,000, and then it continues with the penalties. It's their, I don't want to say it's their form letter, but it's their letter that says, we're looking into it, expect a follow-up, and you'll probably end up having to do some permitting with the Corps. So,
This also hurts our integrity
Oh, yeah.
when we permit work to be done below land under the ocean.
well, that's The reason why
Not
I
on
bring it up,
purpose, but-
well, the reason why I bring it up in this case is that work is also unpermitted through this board.
Right. We didn't permit it.
Correct. So, if we would like to add it to the enforcement action, we certainly can. It's a
I
little
think we
after
should,
the
yeah,
fact.
it's
think
after
we
the
should.
fact, but
I
we
think
should.
if we're gonna throw it all in there, we should throw it all in there.
This isn't going to be the last one of these we're going to see, so we want to make sure that,
I would say the other thing that I was going to recommend, and it was something that kind of came up after the fact as well, because even through our daily inspections, not everything gets caught, is they capped off the trunks, I like to call them, the elephant trunks on the sandbags. Those were capped, and I know we never discussed it. Those are capped not with sand, not with the plastic cap. They cap those with concrete.
what?
Yes.
Yes, that's what I heard.
Oh, my God.
So,
Jamie claimed it was
I would make them pull
only,
the whole thing out,
it was only,
so
the whole thing.
just, come on, hold on.
I'm not joking at all.
Hold on. I didn't say you were joking. I asked you to hold your horses for a moment, okay? And he, Andrew Voss, I don't want to change the subject here, but Andrew Voss said that he should have all the paper roads in place in the taking space by the end of February, okay?
Yeah,
So,
I don't care.
are you going to let me finish?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, at the same time, Cara said that basically she implied that she wouldn't pave those roads, that once Andrew Voss has cleared the title on it, until Baxter Road was threatened.
Exactly.
Well, I thought we had an emergency permit that said Baxter Road is threatened.
Right. So, I don't think it necessarily behooves us to talk about pulling it out right away, rather than pulling it out as soon as the roads have been put in place.
No, if they've got
So,
concrete there, it should be pulled out of
The concrete apparently is half a bag. Whether it's half a bag per plug or half a bag in total, I'm not sure. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it just is a continuation of what has taken place. But I just don't think we need to overreact. Well, I think
They
it's
should
one
pull out the
step at a
concrete.
time.
They need to at least
Well,
pull out
that-
the concrete.
That may be.
Remember
you know.
when I mentioned that this is the same thing as paving the beach, and everyone laughed, and then they paved it.
We're talking about, since I watch this nearly every day, I was
Yeah.
out there watching this, and so where they put the 8-inch pipe in, it's like a 10-inch opening or so on the top. So we're not talking about massive amounts of concrete, but
Draining a wetland, though, that's number one.
you're not getting any argument from me, sir.
Well,
It's a question of degree.
I'm just not sure, where's the concrete exactly?
all right,
It's on
so
the plugs,
when
to
you
seal
put
the
the
plugs.
tube, there are the filling tubes that are there, that they put the slurry into.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So there's like 4 of them per bag. Is when they finish with those, so they anchor to the bag, is they use a small portion of concrete to essentially cap off the end of that tube, and then
Oh.
it gets buried. It's just not a material that we had permitted or had really been discussed.
Because basically what happens is after they got all the slurry in, it's coming out everywhere, and because of the pressure on the top, you've got more of it coming out of the actual opening. So it's sort of spouting out like a miniature fat.
So it's not possible to sew them shut, which I think is what we had assumed they were
Right.
going to be doing.
I
Right.
think we actually even thought about it.
Put a big twist tie on there or something.
I mean, these guys are all from down south. This is what all they do. I guess I was talking to them. So, they come up from Louisiana and Texas. These guys are the guys who do all the beaches in Florida and stuff. I'm kind of surprised that they came up pretty far. So, I mean, that's probably standard practice for them. And honestly, something like that, I mean, it was never, I don't think it was anything type of mention of how those things were going to be.
I never thought about it, yeah, right.
I never really thought about it either. I mean, technically.
I just thought they were, that
half a
all that
bag,
water is
30
supposed to flow out, so the sand
30
would be
pounds
there.
of concrete is not exactly, we're literally talking something this big. Like I say, it may just be the general practice.
So we're going to allow infiltration, concrete,
No.
working in
No,
the...
we're not.
No, we're not
No, I'm
allowing
just thinking, I don't think there's like, they're trying to be secretive about it. I'm sure it's just the guys, it's just what they do. You know what I mean? The guys are
But
just
there,
doing it and they just do it.
Jamie said he would oversee
Yeah.
every minute of the application, and that nothing that we didn't permit would ever occur. He said that very specifically.
True.
I like
Yeah.
Jamie, but
He
I mean,
never
he
brought up,
promised
though.
that he wouldn't let stuff like this happen.
I understand, but at the same time, Jamie doesn't know anything about these type of bags and installation. You know,
Well, Bobby does. Sorry.
These people all do.
Well, I have to say, I'm not coming to his defense in any way. I like him too. But at the same time, as we were up there, I was, looking at everything and thinking, okay, just registering it. I didn't discuss with him really what I was registering, and he was quite open about it. The fact is, on the 900 feet of geotubes, and when you think of the square footage, we are literally talking about, I don't know, 20 or 30 square feet out of 3,000 or 4,000 square feet that they capped. It is a small amount. Obviously we need to register it. I'm just saying, first of all, I don't even know how they'd locate the caps. They'd have to come a bulldozer and scrape the whole top off. We're sort of
It's just in the top row, or is it every?
I'm sure it's every row. I'm sure it's every row. Yeah.
Ernie, can I have a shot?
Yep.
I'm guessing it's every row.
Okay, that's
I'm listening to all this, and I'm saying there's a lot of small things that are big things that are compiling that are problems that are going to cause us to take a look at and say, as all these things get compiled, we have an issue that has to be addressed. So I think I go along with the idea that the whole project is going to have to be looked at in terms of what's the emergency, what's going to happen with the road. So it may come to taking out a geotube, putting in jute, or changing this whole outcome of this project. So rather than nickel and dime, I think we should have some enforcement about the pipe, for sure, because that's...
the wetland issues.
Yeah, the wetland issues, yes. But in terms of the whole project and what we're going to do about the project, I think we should be compiling and then not nickel and dime, but come in with a clear direction of what we're doing rather than little bits taking it apart. That's my overall feeling.
I just wanted to bring the 3 areas of
Yeah.
question or non-compliance. That's why I don't issue these out without bringing them here, because I want to see what the board's decision is, not what my decision is.
Well, with the concrete, we could at least make them come in and ask for an amended order or a minor
Well,
mod.
the thing is, they don't have a permit at this
Well,
point.
they don't have a permit, that's
No.
right.
So it should come out.
They're still in an open application. So the number of options, we can note it on the enforcement, whether we choose to or not. We can take action that you guys feel. I'm hesitant to make big sweeping actions without really the public here are involved.
Right, that's my point.
Because the only public here right now is Emily and Art.
Well, I think that...
And without them here to also
Right.
receive that instruction, if it was a major change to the project, to have them present, and then, as much as I hate to say it this way, to do it in public, because
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
it rises to that level. I think part of that discussion needs, but the pipe, I think, personally, that can be addressed in something like that. That's not,
We would do
That's
that
not
for
taking
any
away-
other-
that's, we do that for any
Yeah.
other one. I think
I think you're
major
right.
changes or alterations to the project that as it exists should be done in a more noticed public hearing, whether that's
Yeah, the public needs to,
2 weeks.
public needs to be part of it.
For the work for
absolutely.
Land Under the Ocean, certainly, because we had permitted them to work above the high tide.
correct.
And I think they overestimate or underestimate how much room they had to work in,
Mm-hmm.
what they
Yeah.
had. They actually
Yeah.
created a slurry out of the beach, which we didn't necessarily permit, so they've got some, but that's better dealt by the Army Corps of Engineers, but they are out of compliance. The deal with the concrete, and I know it's just a small chunk, but when these things erode, are we talking that big a ball? These are boulders.
A half a bag of concrete is 80 pounds dry.
Okay.
Okay, so
But I thought it was
pound
half a
is
tube of
No, it's
Half a
still-
pound.
Oh, and
Half a
half a
bag.
bag. So a bag, you're talking literally a ton.
Yeah, you're not
You
talking...
mix up a bag of cement, it reduces it to nothing.
Yeah.
A full
Yeah.
bag is like,
That may be something
it really is not.
I think the
anything. We're not talking
okay.
boulders, we're talking,
Well, I think the important
Okay.
part with that is we need to,
I don't think.
I think we need someone to explain to us what exactly that is.
Yeah.
I don't think it hurts to include it in the enforcement and say, one, you needed to tell us in your protocol that it was going to be done. But like you said, is it a softball size? Is it a bowling ball size? Is it a glacial boulder size? What is it? We need to
Right.
know. And if it's inappropriate, then we can decide action from there. Or if it's
I
something
agree.
that's negligible. But I think we need to know.
Have it
We
explained.
need to know, yeah.
Well, and in fairness, when we do enforcement orders, for the most part, we issue an enforcement order asking for ceasing whatever the activity is that's going on and have them come before us
Yeah.
to explain what it is that they did and how they're going to rectify it. I mean, that's typically how we've addressed almost everyone else we've approached, instead of saying, take it all out before you can see it.
Well,
Just
but for the pipe, though,
fairness.
we have issued enforcement orders that said remove it.
Right, but
I
since
think
it's
we all should
capped,
go out
that
and look at the
essentially
pipe.
stops the work that's happening.
Yeah, that's probably.
Right.
You know, I mean, maybe we should double check that it is capped at the top.
I mean, we should see what this thing
Important
really
part, but
is.
Yes.
Yeah,
Why
I
don't-
agree with you, we need
Take a
to.
look at it.
Yeah, we should look at
Right.
it.
Yeah,
look
that's
at it.
totally.
Why don't we'll
And
schedule
I
that?
think on this issue is Jeff's point about it, make that everything is out in front of the public when we make our
Right, right,
decisions, so
right.
it's all understood.
I mean,
Yeah, 'cause
part of this
otherwise
too,
we'll
I mean,
get
this is
backlash.
also,
Right.
as much as I hate to say it and as much as I hate to play politics, this is the project that everyone is looking to the Conservation Commission to be the Conservation Commission. No one cares about Rabbit Run Road. Maybe the neighbors. No one
Yes, we
cares.
screwed up 3 times already.
This is, no,
You're in the limelight.
we didn't do any screw up at all. Is projects that have compliance issues, and the important part is that we take our appropriate action to rectify it. I mean, I hate to point at this one, and if Art wants to plug his ears, he can. When you look at a project that we had issues with the North Shore with CMDM and 8070 Oak Point Road, those were ones that wasn't our fault that they built something that wasn't in compliance with their permit. But what happened was we issued out appropriate orders and got that situation rectified correctly and then permitted things in the future. That's what we're here to do. It's not, and to be the same, if, not to pick on Rabbit Run again, if they build that house wrong, that's not our fault. That's their fault for doing it not in compliance, and it's our job to return it to compliance.
We should have gotten those, work in the swash zone is our fault.
No, we did not permit
We
that, though.
didn't permit it.
Well, they didn't present that as what they were going to be
We were
doing.
showing pictures at the very beginning that Jeff sent around 3-4 weeks ago that showed work in the swash zone.
But it wasn't.
We should have
Yeah,
stopped.
those-
permitted.
those
Yeah, we
nice
should
moving
stop
No,
that.
they actually said that they were going to put the pump offshore. In fact, what they did do is put the pump where they dug the hole because they
The
didn't
trench.
want to run, So,
No,
I mean,
I had heard it because they were sucking up seaweed. They wanted to run offshore and they were sucking up stuff with the pump. So they ended up creating this,
Right.
the hole that they created in the front,
Artificial
created
pool.
filling up the water. It was convenient and cool for them to take the water right out of it.
No, I understand from an
Yeah.
engineering point, but
Yeah.
that's an additional take.
Yeah.
It's additional adverse impact on the beach.
right, but I'm just making the point
Yeah.
that what we permitted was something else. We permitted it according to what they said they were going to do.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, for part of it for us, the board has never dealt with the project at the scale of this project. There's
Right.
going to be, as much as I hate to say, there are going to be growing pains and things that are there. The important part is that we, again, take appropriate action and make sure that it doesn't happen again. I mean, you put your hand on the stove once, you pull it off, and you know not to do it again. And that's, again, this
There's
is,
snipers
You
on the
could
block.
listen to their Schneider Sorry.
Well, so let's think about how we want to go about this then and get this over with.
Down the tubes.
so I guess what I'm hearing, and I'll type it up, and I brought the one for you guys to sign, and we'll fix it. So I guess the extent and type of activities that we're looking at, I'll just kind of list them. One is the drainage pipe along the coastal bank.
Mm-hmm.
Concrete plugs.
Yep, concrete plugs. And then excavation beneath the high water line.
Yeah,
Any work below the high tide line.
yeah. And excavation in the beach in front of them.
I had a question. Was there supposed to be 2 areas of sand going over the bluff?
Yeah, actually, I think 3 chutes. 3 chutes.
They actually designated 3 different spots, and
different
they've only
spots.
used, they've only
Potential
used
spots.
Okay.
2 of them.
Yeah, I can think
That
of
fence
Were they supposed to be
makes
working
sense,
in the
but we
night?
didn't permit that
With
either.
lights?
the multiple entry points.
I don't think we made any statements.
No.
So
The
the,
lights
Remember
issue
on
is
this
a
one. I know that
a different
The
issue.
fence on the top end.
Oh,
on
the
For
fence.
a different place.
Yeah, that's something they would have had to ask for permission. That was more than a, I don't think, from the pictures I've seen, don't look like something we permitted.
Mhm.
and then there's the issue of, whether how liberally they've interpreted the stabilizing the bluff.
Oh, yeah. Putting sand on, I mean, there was
All the
no,
way along.
they weren't,
A
there was no
massive-
plan of doing
way
anything
up.
to the bluff itself,
Yeah.
above the
So-
banks.
And they're still leaving sand on top.
Yeah, that they're people.
All right, so we have 4. So we have the drainage pipe, the concrete plugs, work below high water mark, and then the sand along the bluff face.
You want to measure the type of sand? Brown dirt?
Well,
I think we have to look at this too.
Yeah.
Well,
We have to
they
look at this.
Go on, do it.
soils?
I think this is probably something.
Pictures I saw looked like soil or gravel, but I couldn't tell.
I think it's important enough that for our normal few viewings that we do prior to the next hearing, we can either get together earlier to go do this specifically, or we can just do a separate visit when you guys feel like it's a good idea to do a field visit, and we'll just go to the Sconset Bluff as a
We should
group.
do a field
Let's do
visit.
it.
When it's sunny.
And it should be four-wheel drive from Hoy's Hollow.
Oh, we'll get you onto the ground there. That's not a problem.
Yeah, but
I'll bring my
Slide down the
Snowcaster rod.
Zip line.
take a subway car at this rate.
Believe me. We'll get you down there and get you onto the beach. That's not an issue. And then I guess,
Yeah, anything
For-
else, Jeff?
what's that?
Anything else?
I think that's a pretty good start. I mean, that's kind of the 4 major ones that are there. And we can issue that out. I guess the question is, obviously, we want them to cease and desist that action. That would be pretty clear.
And which actions would they be ceasing and desisting?
The excavation below high water, if they were doing any, and then also placing sand on the bluff face itself. I mean, that obviously is excluded. The 2 points of exclusion are the 2 sand delivery spots that when it goes over the edge, it goes over the edge, it's obviously going to deposit. But outside of that area, if they're depositing the sand on the face of the bank,
They
that would
already
be,
have.
yeah, that's outside of their,
That's what we gotta look for.
their zones of deposition. They would have to cease and desist placing sand on the bank itself, outside of where conveyor 1 and conveyor 2 put sand over, because some of that sand is,
Right.
and the deposit zone lands on the bank.
We had permitted sand in front of the bags, is that correct?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's our mitigation sand,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's where they're at right now.
There's sand in front of the bags, and then there's the sand cover on
Thank
top of
God
the bags.
Michael's not here.
And the
He'll
other
be here
part
an
of the
extra
cease and
hour.
desist is the function of the drainage pipe.
Yes.
Well,
He would
we-
walk that way.
It's making sure
His
there's
comments would have been.
Correct.
So do we need to make a motion to issue this then?
We will. I just want to be sure we need to get all the other pieces filled in here. And are we going to say if that work ceases, that their appropriate action to take is
Come in front of us.
to come in front of you on the hearing on the 19th
Mhm.
to specifically address these things?
These issues, yeah.
That's the fair thing to do.
That's easy enough.
I think we need to explain to Kira what this does for our trust in the DPW.
So,
Yeah, I mean, she's got to be aware that this has a broader impact.
Well, with the excavation, I don't think there's any way you can go back.
No, you can't, that's done.
No, it affects going.
But we need to make sure they're, yeah.
Yeah.
And the airport was closed down. So
Well,
that's the effort I made to get that.
all right. Well, that's what we'll do. Well, I didn't do it by myself.
Okay.
Just need a motion to
Motion
issue
to
an
issue the
enforcement action.
enforcement. Do I have a motion? Okay, guys.
Motion to enforce, issue the enforcement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thanks, Jeff.
Well, thank you. I told you I had something at the end. So
Yeah.
I just want to be sure you guys understand that we're paying attention. So if we see stuff that's not in compliance, instead of just issuing out, I'm always going to bring it in front of the board. And then, I apologize for some of this happening while I was on vacation and being away. So it's kind of unavoidable if I'm in a
Well,
foreign
that's,
country.
yeah, it's
I
totally
can't
not
do
your
that.
fault. You gotta be able to take vacations.
So-
But the town understands that you've gotta have someone that can respond to these things
Well-
when you're gone.
Part of these things came up after I got back, and again, we just didn't have. We had the meeting last week, and the pipe wasn't in at that point, and the concrete kind of came after that as well. So some of the stuff. I mean, I do promise you that I personally am at least out there once a day, and our department's usually out there at least twice a day,
sorry.
sometimes three, depending on what's going on, both on the beach and above. Sometimes stuff goes in and stuff gets squirreled away pretty quickly. That's just can't catch them all the time. So we catch them now, and then we get them from it, and we take the action that we have the ability to take the action to take. But I don't want to take the action.
Okay, we done now, Jeff?
I'm done. That's all I got.
Okay.
Thanks everyone for staying.
So do I have a motion to close? Second. All in favor? Any opposed?
Well, let
Okay.
me think about it.
I'm opposed.
You sit here and think
I refuse to adjourn.
I like that.
Right here.
So let me check. Was your dad's signature like their signature?
No.
Really? Mine's pretty like my dad.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I have like his signature a lot.
Oh, cool.
I know I copied parts of it. Because yours is very unique. I wonder where it came from. I know. Years of doodling in school.
Yes.
That's good. I like that.
Third time's a charm here, I hope. We're back again to put the language back in regards to hunting. It's fine. We have no problem with that whatsoever in terms of putting that back in. To be honest with you, the state took that out and we didn't even essentially notice. It was just, but throwing it back in is fine. Yeah. No problem. That's fine. Yeah. Great. Thank you. And this is a redo of, I'm sorry, I'm Michael May from the Nantucket Preservation Trust. This is a redo of an earlier easement. We had an easement on the summer church, and they have a CPC grant that includes the old vestry, so we're extending the easement to include both churches.